Hey everybody, welcome to Lorebeards 40,000.
The greater good.
The greater good. Hot Fuzz is one of my favorite movies of all time. It is
I'm so glad you got
good.
the reference immediately.
So good. Oh,
I actually got to not only meet
Alexis.
Simon Pegg, I went to all of the places that all of those movies were filmed.
Nice. Alexis, I have something that you don't have.
What?
A great big bushy beard. Sorry, I couldn't resist. All right, but for reals, we are here to talk about the Tau Empire. Lorebeards 40K is going to dive into the Xenos of the Segmentum Obscurus. No, they're in the Eastern Fringe. They're out there on the fringe, but they are growing, and it's gonna be very cool to talk about them. But before we get into that, yeah, well, they're still growing. Before we do that, though, we need to talk about who we are. Would you like to begin?
So I am Chasserie Alexis. I'm joking. My name is Norn Queen Alexis. I'm a Viking reenactress, a Warhammer nerd and enthusiast. I'm doing some tournament prep tomorrow and a game designer.
Nice.
So nice. Ross, who are you?
I'm Ross Watson. I am a game designer and author. I worked on the majority of the Warhammer 40K roleplay line, created Wrath and Glory, and was part of the White Dwarf team for a couple of years, worked on several 40K video games. If you like the lore for their Dark Heresy, Rogue Traders, the Death Watch, the Inquisition, I did a lot of that. So that's why I'm here.
Hell yeah.
Now, before we get into it, I think we need to talk about what we're about to get into, because Lore Seekers, you're in for a treat today. We are going to talk about the bright blue anomaly of the 41st millennium, the Tau Empire, in a galaxy where every other civilization seems determined to worship a corpse, eat a planet, or set it on fire in the name of ancient grudges. The Tau show up with real guns and diplomacy and sleek-ass battlesuits and a smiling invitation to join the greater good.
They definitely don't have a knife behind their back.
Behind that optimistic propaganda lies one of 40K's most fascinating factions, a young empire expanding at terrifying speed, held together by alien allies, rigid caste doctrine, mysterious ethereals, and a very uncomfortable question of whether hope can survive in a universe that's built to crush that very concept.
And beneath all of that is possibly the most subtly evil empire in all of Warhammer 40K.
Well, like we like to say on this channel, there's no such thing as good guys. The Tau sits on a point in the spectrum that is perhaps less evil, but still evil.
They would be, in D&D terms, old D&D terms, they'd be lawful evil. Where everything else would be chaotic, or I guess the Imperium would also fall under lawful evil.
Absolutely would fall under. But suffice to say, it's again on the spectrum of most evil to least evil. Tower, a little bit on the less evil side.
I would say the least evil faction in 40K as of right now is probably the Leagues of Votann.
I would generally agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
If not them, if the Kroot ever became a full faction, them. Because the Kroot don't actually destroy any planets, where the Votann will mine an entire world with civilizations on it and just be like, wow, we had a piece of paper that said it was ours.
Okay, so let's see here. So Lord Vord is saying they're ruthless but pragmatic rather than evil. Well, I mean, that's a form of evil.
Mass unalivings of an entire civilization because they saw the Tau Va. That's kind of evil.
Forced sterilization.
Work camps. Forced bionics upon a race that doesn't like them.
Perhaps not maliciously evil, but definitely. Anyway, they're on the less evil side. The only thing I really want to point out is they're on the less evil side of the spectrum before we get into it. But we are going to get into it now. So, Alexis, where would you like to begin with the Tau?
So, Ross,
Yeah.
Do you know who Arkin Lan is?
I definitely do.
Now, do you know what the Lan's ship is?
The land ship.
The
Okay.
Arkin
Lands. Okay.
Lan's ship.
Okay. What is it?
That's right. It's a classification of ship that we have no idea what it is. This story starts 6,000 plus years ago, but 6,000 is the general idea. 6,000 years ago, the Tau were discovered by the Adeptus Mechanicus explorator fleet flying around in a land ship. We don't know what a land ship is, and I really am curious because I kind of hope that it just looks like a gigantic land raider.
Yep. It's worth pointing out that Tau does in fact rhyme with wow.
Yeah.
Oh wow, it's the Tau. They are a young humanoid species that is native to a homeworld called Tau, which is located in the ultimate segmentum near the eastern fringe of the galaxy, where they were discovered 6,000 years ago by the Adeptus Mechanicus. Basically, they were in the Stone Age back then.
Yep. You know what's really cool about one of the original pictures of them being discovered? There's an Imperial fist in that picture that if you look at, looks more like a space wolf than an Imperial fist. Because he's got like pelts and everything on him. And then there's just the fist on the shoulder. And it's like, huh.
There is some cultural crossover between the fists and the wolves in some cases. A good example being what's that guy? Fenrir. What is his name? The guy
with the 2 axes, right?
Yeah, the guy with the 2 axes. Fafnir Rand. Fafnir Rand. That's his name. Yeah, Fafnir Rand looks like should be a space wolf, but he's an Imperial fist.
I love that his name is just faffing around. That is so funny.
Well, there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek
super
names.
chat here, real quick.
Oh, Dynaman, thank you for the super chats. He says, some people, I love the mechs. Some people, I wish they had more auxiliary forces. Me, I like their tanks. Also, do you agree the Hammerhead looks a tiny bit like the droid tanks from the Star Wars prequels? Yes.
It 100% does.
There's some inspiration there, yeah. The inspiration for the Tau runs the gamut. It comes from anime, it comes from Star Wars, it comes from Star Trek.
Comes from Mech Warrior, comes from just a whole bunch of stuff. I kind of do wish they would dive more into the mech and anime, the mecha and anime side of it, and
more
give us some like close combat Tau. Like give us a squad with some kind of like make one have an Inaugural Gauntlet, make one have the Melta beam sword that they have.
Yes, beam swords.
They have all of this stuff in the lore, and they used to have it in older editions, but then they were just like, yeah, it's gone.
So when they were discovered back in 6,000 years ago, they were just kind of, they just mastered fire, they had the wheel, but they hadn't much more than that. But from that starting point, they underwent one of the most rapid civilizational accelerations of any species in the galaxy. They achieved faster than light spaceflight and forged an interstellar empire within just a few millennia, which is crazy fast.
It definitely had nothing to do with the Eldar.
So yeah, fun fact: at one time, a designer did tell me that one of the original plans was that the Eldar had been the ones responsible for uplifting the species. And there's even some older lore that suggests the ethereals were created or seeded by like some very slender alien figures. That's old lore. I wouldn't put a lot of stock into it anymore. But at one time, that was something that I had been told, and I was like, that's wild. That's absolutely crazy. And it is honestly within the Eldar's remit to manipulate another species for their own benefit. But whether they have that ability or not, I mean, probably. Anyway, let's just say I find it to be at this point a theory that is at best very suspect, because a lot of that old lore comes from a book called Xenology.
Yeah, which that book is by Games Workshop own admission not canon.
Do not trust anything out of the Xenology book. Period.
Yeah.
Xenology lore. Good times.
There are some things in it that are corroborated by other novels that I will talk about, but there are some things in the books that are just flat out incorrect at this point. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's fair to say. So at the time when they were discovered, Tau society was fractured into warring tribes, and they went through a very violent era called the Montau, which has different translations: the Terror, the Long Darkness, etc. And in this time, the warrior tribes, the plains and the mountain dwellers and the city dwellers, they fought each other relentlessly. And the species seemed destined to tear itself apart until a turning point came during the siege of the fortress city of Fiautan. And these names are, I mean, if I butcher them, please let me know. But I'm doing my best here. And the Plains Warriors besieged the city's inhabitants for 5 years, driving them to starvation and disease. But at the height of the siege, these mysterious strangers appeared. And who were these mysterious strangers, Alexis?
The Avatar. I'm joking. The Ethereals. So 2 Ethereals appeared, and each one went to the respected parts of this war. One walked within the fortress itself, and they opened the doors to him. The other walked into the what was it? It wasn't. It was the air temple that he went to, right?
So one appears inside the city, and one appears in the camp of the besiegers.
Yeah,
is basically without getting too deep into the details that don't really matter. That's what happened.
Yep. They chatted, and they both, well, decided to form a union.
Because these beings, these ethereals, they had some sort of aura, if you will. They exuded some sort of authority that the Tau could not resist. The ethereals, wherever they went, the Tau were like, okay, you're in charge. We believe you. We will follow you. You know, you are our new leader. And so these 2 ethereals convinced both sides to lay down their arms within hours and negotiate.
Mm-hmm.
Sigma energy, says Lord Warren.
Yeah, they just walk in, looks maxing, and just told them, stop being beta cucks. Get along with each other.
Dynaman says everything changed when the Firecast attacked. Very good. Yeah, so the ethereals, they started to appear more and more across the homeworld of the Tau, and they each preached an identical message. And I say preach, but it's not really religious. I mean, it kind of is, but it's not really. It's more of a philosophy than a spiritual thing.
Well, okay. It depends. The further away from the ethereals the Tau are, the more they believe it as a religion. The closer they are, the less religious they are, the more atheistic they are.
Well, certainly amongst their non-Tau allies, and we will get into that because their culture does include other species than just the Tau. They definitely feel it a little more religiously.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so amongst the Tau, though, specifically the Tau people, this message that they were brought by the ethereals was a philosophy of unity and a philosophy of, I guess, sacrifice is another way to put it, like coming together for what was called the ideal of the greater good.
The greater good.
Also called the Tau Va.
The Tau Va.
The greater good. And the greater good basically stratified them into a caste system.
Yes, but also their own biology did that as well. Because the air caste was always meant to be like spaceships and flying around, because they were designed, like not designed, well, kind of, depending if you still go with the Eldar origin of them. But the different castes all look slightly different. They're all subspecies of the Tau. The Earth caste is big and strong for the most part, on par with a human. Keep in mind, we're super monkeys. Then we got things like the air caste, thank you, brain, who are tall, slender, and kind of resemble humans that are born in space, which is really interesting that they're almost like human-esque, but it's like, it's weird, and I have a weird thing to bring up later about that. The air caste grew membranous wings wings between their hands and their bodies that allowed them to fly on currents of in their planet, which is kind of really sick. Like they could glide for a moment. They would eventually become the pilots and the naval officers. They would take over, similar to the Imperial Navy, which is really cool. Then we have things like the water caste, and the water caste were negotiators, which is interesting because they were the ones that were traveling merchants. So they were the one constantly selling wares and dealing with people and having to deal with fractious peoples their entire developmental cycle, that they became so good at it that they just became the negotiators of the Tau. Then you have the Earth Cast, and the Earth Cast were always the tinkerers, the ones that they're the dwarves. I don't know how else to put it. They're dwarves. They were the ones that build stuff. They made the black powder originally, which, by the way, the Tau discovered black powder in like 200 years, and were killing each other with it immediately. Which the Tau were kind of a self-solving problem if the Eldar left them alone.
Well, we don't know it was the Eldar. That's again, that is.
I know. I'm saying that as a huge grain of salt because it's really funny. If I say the Tau were created by the Eldar, it is just a joke. Keep that in mind. It's old lore that is not canon anymore. Let's, make sure we don't. Yeah. But these things would eventually develop into the castes, and then the ethereals came along. And no, the ethereals are not time travelers. I saw that in the chat. No.
Well, let's put it this way. There's no evidence to suggest that they are at this point.
Unless you do the whole Hrud theory, which comes from xenology.
Let's avoid talking about xenology, please, for the love of God. Yeah, the Firecast, they are the ground military. They are the pilots of the battle suits. They're muscular, and they come from the plains, and they're roughly human-sized. The Earthcast are short, stout, dwarf-like, like she said. And they're the ones that are mostly responsible for the technological leaps with the Tau, is the Earthcast. The Watercast, these guys are social adepts. They're also incredibly good at linguistics, something that is rare. As far as the Aircast, I want to be clear. They, according to the lore, they did have flying squirrel wings, but they evolved out of it.
Yes, they did have the flying squirrel wings, but I still find that super funny.
Originally, yes, not anymore.
They were sugar gliders.
Although, again, that kind of evolutionary change over 6,000 years is incredibly short, just to be very, very clear.
Yeah, that's millions of years of evolution.
And then the ethereal cast, or the On, as they're called, they are the political and spiritual rulers of the Tau Empire. They have unquestioned authority. When ethereal shows up, everybody shuts up and sits down. With one exception, we will talk about Commander Farsight a little bit later on down the line.
I'm sorry, you mean the coolest Tau commander in the history of forever?
Oshova, love him. He's super cool. Fire War. Sorry, the term for the Fire Warriors is the Shas. The term for the Earthcast is the Fio or Fio. The Watercast is called the Pour. Okay. Watercast is Pour, and the Aircast is Core. So Core, Pour, Fio, and Shaz are the names.
Poor guys.
Let's see. So in terms of rank within the casts, there is a suffix attached to the name of the cast. So if you are a fire warrior and you're the lowest rank, like you're a private fire warrior, you're a Shazla, okay, up to Shaz-O, which are the commanders. And there's the Shazui, which are like sergeant.
Damn.
Yeah, Shaz-O, damn.
Shazui. And then you have the commanders who get even crazier names. And the Imperium comments on this, which is very strange because they're like, Tau names are too long. Meanwhile, the custodian over there with 62 names.
Hi, how you doing? Fun fact, the casts used to interbreed prior to the arrival of the Ethereals. The Ethereals are like, they put an end to that. The Ethereals are like, no. You only breed within your own caste.
Yeah.
Nothing sinister about that whatsoever, I'm sure.
No. We're not going to talk about the real world connections too much with the Tau. Needless to say, they are very inspired by Asian cultures.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about that the other day because I remember their voice acting from Dawn of War had a very Asian sound to it, which is interesting. Now, the Ethereals, though, of all these casts, the Ethereals are the most mysterious. They are one of the biggest mysteries of the Tau and one of the biggest mysteries in Warhammer 40K because we don't know why specifically the Tau obey them, but we do know that the Tau obey them like unquestioningly. There is very, very few Tau have ever refused a direct request from an ethereal, and their authority over the lower caste seems to be, with the one exception we're going to talk about later, absolute and unquestioned.
Now, when we do say that only one Tau has directly gone against the Ethereals, there are some books where Fire Warriors do go against the Ethereals, but we're talking about the hardest canon lore, which is the Codexes.
Right.
Just so we're clear.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably so. It's worth mentioning now, right at this point, that here on Lorebeards we look at the current studio publications, the core rule books, the codexes, campaign books, stuff like that. That is like the top tier canon. That is absolutely what's real. It's the best statement of what is true in the setting. And then below that, you've got like more. It kind of goes in terms of like recency. Like the more recent stuff is more accurate to the older stuff. Below that, you've got the Black Library novels and audio dramas, third party things like role playing games. You've got the video games underneath that, and then like developer interviews and fan wikis like Lexicanum and 40K Wikipedia. All at the bottom. Like that stuff is useful, but it's not necessarily true.
Yes. Oh, and yes, technically, Dino Man, you are correct. Everyone that followed Farsight did also betray. They betrayed They betrayed a. Well, okay.
We'll get into it. We'll get into it when we talk about Farsight because it's very complicated.
Yeah,
to be clear, it's more.
He wasn't there.
It's more complicated than you think when it comes to Farsight. But he is kind of his own man. He's he's basically the exception of Tau follow the Ethereals, and we'll get into that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, request equals order, says Wesloose. Yeah, that basically the Ethereals tend to be polite in their commands, but they are still essentially commands.
It is really funny that they try to negotiate with everyone before they fight them. But their form of negotiation I'm going to get into because it's one of my favorite forms of negotiations. But we're still talking about the cast and everything, so Ross, please continue.
Well, I was just going to talk about their physiology for a minute. So the Tau themselves, specifically the Tau, are humanoid. They have 2 arms, 2 legs. They have head. They have hoofed feet, which is kind of interesting. 4-digit hands.
2 stomachs.
Gray-blue leathery skin. And a distinctive eye-shaped facial slit running from their forehead down to where the nose would be is like this kind of slit in their face. Their vision is slightly further into ultraviolet and infrared than human sight, which makes them just slightly better marksmen in general than humans. But they have other weaknesses. Specifically, they're just not very good in close combat.
They also lack depth perception, which is hilarious.
Well, that's from Xenology, though. So
it's rated in Janice Drake.
Okay, well, all right, fair enough. So maybe they do. Maybe they do, in fact, suffer from.
But then again, who's to know if he's telling the truth?
That is true. That's a good point. Their most consequential biological trait, though, is that they have a near total absence of psychic potential, and they have very little presence in the warp. They are kind of like a faint glimmer, as opposed to the very bright souls of humans or the exceptionally bright souls of Eldari, for example.
This does not mean that they are immune to demonic possession. No. Demons have possessed Tau before. In fact, there's a whole video game where that happens, which is very strange. But demons have possessed Tau before. They are interested in Tau, but it would be like a lion going after an anthill. It's like, well, yes, I can eat this whole anthill, and okay. it's not really worth it yet. Yet being a very big word here.
It's true. I mean, one of the most frightening things about the Tau is their potential, because they are growing at an exceptional rate.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to point out they have no equivalents to navigators, although the Kroot do, surprisingly.
And they don't use them.
No, they don't use them. So the Tau are basically limited. They're forced to limit themselves, really, to sublight or relativistic speeds, which is a major reason their empire has expanded comparatively slowly and cautiously compared to some of their other factions in the galaxy. Now, the Tau researchers, they have investigated the warp. There was a world called Medusa 5 where they did some interesting things with the warp. But ultimately, they concluded that the warp is no place for the greater good and abandoned all their further study, which is, I would say, a very smart move, like a surprisingly sensible decision.
Now, this might have had a zombie planet involved and a plague that might have almost killed like an entire sphere of expansion. But they decided at the end of it, not really worth it. You can't really deal with demons, unfortunately. I mean, I can. You know.
So, yeah. I wonder if Biofoot's here, because, like, if there's anybody who's fishmen, it's the Tau in 40K.
Yeah, the joke name for the Tau is that they are the fishmen, because a lot of their vehicles, designations, and names in Imperial records are based around fish. They were called the Fish of Fury.
That's a tactic. That's a whole tactic on the tabletop. Yeah.
Yep. Which then got changed to Monka and the other one. I only know of.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. There's fighting styles in this as well.
But the connections to fish is actually very loose at best. They're actually more connected at this point. I feel like I could talk about this because we're still talking about the Tau and their biology and everything. They have more in common with cows than anything else. They are, well, cows and pigs. More specifically, pigs. They are pigmen, and I have a sneaking suspicion that somebody at the design team was a huge Duke Nukem fan, because the Duke Nukem pigmen were blue and used long-range weapons. But jokes aside, the Tau have poor eyesight. Pigs have pretty okay eyesight. They get spooked easily, which if you know pigs, you know how easily spooked they are. I've raised pigs. They have the hooved feet. They have 2 stomachs. They can absorb any type of food really easily. They can sense vibrations, potentially. Their music sucks, which if you don't know, pigs' music is terrible. But the Tau have more in common with pigs than they do with... and they also smell of spoiled milk, which is another hilarious thing.
Just to go really quick into that Medusa 5 thing, that was actually the 2006 global campaign for Games Workshop, in case you were not aware, because that's 20 years old at this point. Oh my God, what even is time?
Don't say that. I don't need to know.
Essentially, Medusa 5 was a world that everybody was fighting over. The Tau were specifically already there when everyone else arrived. They were underneath the surface of the planet. They were running these hidden research facilities to try and uncover or exploit the planet's ancient technological mysteries while a warp storm was approaching the world. And basically, they managed to get off-world with all their studies and information about what was going on with the warp, which is where they get their information about the warp and all that. It comes from Medusa 5. There's really not much more else to say about that, so I just wanted to get it out of the way. Now, this would be a good time to go and look at our super chats, because we have quite a few, and I know we have another one from Dynaman. I want to make sure and grab that.
Yep, I highlighted that one so we wouldn't miss it.
Awesome.
Boop. There we go.
Dynaman says, also hot take, I think the Tau Auxiliary should be their own faction, kind of like the Gene Stealer cult are to the Tyranids. You know, it's not bad. Give me psychic flying polar bears, Games Workshop, goddammit. We have Exodites now. Nisasar should be the next target. Ooh.
A Nisasar kill team would be really cool. The way that I think that they introduce the Tau auxiliaries is not as their own force, but as just kill teams. That's it. I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, probably kill team would be a good way to go with that. And we've never seen Nissisar models. We've seen, except for their ships. We've seen their ships, but we haven't seen them. I would be excited to see them. Okay, so we got Necritz Kobold says, the Tau got me into Warhammer. Sadly, I think Games Workshop overcorrected to fans' complaints. Wish the Grim shift was more them being forced to conform to a Grimdark setting to survive, rather than what Games Workshop did. You're going to need to explain that just a little more as to like what you think Games Workshop did. So
I actually like that the Tau are darker now than they've ever been. Like the Tau's lore of just like absolutely killing a bunch of their human Gavesa, even the ones that were born into the Tau societies have integrated perfectly. Hopefully, you okay?
Your cat's hacking up
Hang
a
on a
hairball.
second. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll take over for you while you go handle that.
Are you good?
Or not?
Hang on. I don't know if he's good or not. He's just kind of.
All right. So I'll take over for a little bit. This is the part of the episode where I say super chat's the absolute best way to support the channel. If you want to see more Lorebeards and make sure the hosts, get to do more things, please consider giving us a super chat, because they are the absolute best way to get more 40K content coming your way on Lorebeards. And we're very grateful to everyone who chooses to support us this way. Necritz Kobold, I think I feel like what you're saying is some of the reveals later on as the lore evolved for the Tau, and they became a little more grimdark and a little less bright hope. But this is a split. This is a thing that's been dividing the fan community in 40K for a very long time. There's people who wish the Tau were more grimdark. There are people that feel the Tau don't quite fit grimdark. There's people that feel the Tau should never fit grimdark. It's an interesting discussion to have at some point. Oh, we're back.
There we go.
I was just addressing the fact that there's a lot of different views on whether the Tau fit into grimdark or should fit into grimdark, or are it's a split in the fan community. That's all I was saying.
It is a split. But after reading a whole bunch of the Tau's lore and everything, I really do think that they fit. I think, unironically, I think they fit way better than a Votann.
Weirdly enough, I prefer the Votann. I'm gonna be on the opposite side of that. But that being said, I still like both factions.
Yeah. I like what Tau are in the lore right now. I think they're strong, but they're not like. They can't expand into Ultramar anymore. They can't expand into Damocles. So now they're going the other way. And when they did, they hit Death Guard. Oh,
yes,
great.
We're going to talk about that a little bit too. So Acne Zebra, this is a question for you, Alexis. Acne Zebra says, what was the Fire Warrior game and why was it controversial? You played this, didn't you?
So I have beaten the Fire Warrior game. Oh my God, my cat is just coughing up like crazy. He hasn't puked yet, but he's just coughing.
Do you need to take care of it, or? Okay, she's going to go take care of it. I'll see if I can answer this question. So Fire Warrior was a first-person shooter game from a long time ago. I want to say 2003. Yeah. And it's just generally not very good as a game. It's controversial, though, because it is not just a kind of a mediocre FPS, but it's also the adaptation of the lore wasn't so good. The power scaling, which a lot of people are going to be, what? Power scaling? Yeah, power scaling was a problem. There was a kind of I was talking about the controversial nature of the Fire Warrior game and how power scaling was one of the concerns.
What? You know a Tau Fire Warrior can pick up a bolt gun and fire it no problem.
I mean,
although in all fairness, they probably could. It was more the demonic possession towards the end of the game that was a bit weird.
Well, Tau Fire Warriors are not essentially seen as elite forces of the Tau. They are your kind of bog standard infantrymen. So it was a little surprising to see him just carve his way through all of the Space Marines and Imperial Guardsmen and Chaos Forces. What are some other reasons why it was controversial?
Well, because the game sucked. Like, the game was awful. and it had barely a story. The story was that you play as no, just a Shas, not even like a commander or anything.
Shas La. He was Kais was the guy's name.
Yeah.
And
And
he was just a regular old fire warrior.
yeah, he's just a fire warrior. He runs through multiple guardsmen, tanks, chaos space marines, mind you, takes their weaponry, shoots their weaponry like it's nothing, which again, I personally think that in 40K's lore, we have more than enough people at this point wielding space marine weapons that you can't say like unaugmented people can't wield them, because Commissar Yarrick wields a Stormbolter one-handed in his unaugmented arm. And there's several other characters that wield space marine weapons, but it's just big. That's the problem with them. Um, but the game came out at a very weird moment. The Tau were supposed to be the de facto good guys of 40K. And then towards the end of the game, you fight a what are they called? Lord of Change, but you have a demonic bolt gun and you're fighting it, and the bolt gun is talking to you. The book does a little bit to explain this. By the way, the book is also written to be not canon. It has that notice in it now, which is hilarious because it's one of like 4 books that have that. Yeah, and then later on he gets possessed by that Coronate demon, and it's very weird. Also, just the game is bad. Like, it is really bad.
All right, Nestor Vitumbra coming in with a super chat. He says the Enclaves, talking about the Far Side Enclaves, should be a faction with their own units. I wouldn't mind this.
Agreed.
Wouldn't mind this a bit. Nestor says, I don't like that Games Workshop gave them all the new toys. I always imagine them with slightly outdated equipment but more innovative tactics. I mean, that makes sense.
In the lore itself, Farsight is still called in by the Tau. He's just a extremely distrusted ally. And it's more like the Ethereals don't call him in, but Shadow Sun will call them in. And when they show up to help, Shadow Sun won't report it, which is really weird because they show up and help and then leave. I like the idea that they steal a whole bunch of stuff, because they kind of do. The 8 having a Riptide was a little bit weird because originally the Riptide wasn't part of the 8, but then again, the XV hazard suits didn't exist or anything like that. And you can see that in that book behind Ross. Because I think they mentioned the 8 the first time in that book, which would mean that they're all just battle suits. They're XV8s. But that has long since been changed, and I do think that they should, like, if they made the Enclaves its own book, its own expansion, I think that's where you should see the melee Tau. Like,
well, yeah, Oshova is. We should probably just quickly go over who Oshova is, just because we're getting a lot of questions about it.
Yeah,
Oshova. Okay, yeah, he's super cool. Well, would you like to begin?
Yes.
Oshova? All right.
So Commander Farsight is a commander who originally was extremely loyal to the Tau and the Ethereals and everything, and he was one of their most trusted commanders until he went to a world that was it was a demon world, to say the least. It had demons on it, but he didn't know what they were.
Arthas Moloch is the name of the world.
Yep. Yeah. He went to this world and he found a artifact on this planet itself, a sword. Now, this sword, the Dawnblade, has 2 different origins, possibly 3. All are true, all are fake at the same time. That's how 40K lores works. It is a demon blade, potentially. It is a Catan phase blade, potentially. According to more recent sources, it might be a crone sword, or it might be which that would be stupid in my opinion. But it might also be the first part in soul transference that the Necrons need. Because what this weapon does is when he kills something with it, that thing's life essence is put into him. And it was shown that he can be seen by demons. That Tau normally can't be seen too well by demons, the stronger your war presence. Again, this widely depends on the writers, because half the time the writers don't remember stuff like this, but the demons normally don't mess with Tau. because again, little souls, not really worth it. But they did go after the ethereals. That was one of the big things. They went straight after the ethereal, which shows that the ethereal might have maybe a war presence, but he fought against all these creatures and everything, and then he was supposed to be sentenced to death for betraying the Empire. And he was like, "What? No, dumb, wrong."
Well, the ethereals ordered him to return home. Is what they did for judgment. Oshova, he's a legendary Firecast commander. He does believe in the greater good. It's very important to point this out. But he rejects the ethereal's right to define it or control it. He helped to repel the Damocles Gulf Crusade, which is a major imperial. It's a major advance by the Imperium into the Tau region that was actually where the Tau won, which is an extremely unusual circumstance for the Imperium. They were like, "What? How did this happen?"
Yeah.
So after helping out with that, he led a reconquest of worlds that had been lost to the Imperium during that battle, during that conflict, I should say. And he was chasing orcs down, which led him to Arthas Moloch and the Dawnblade. And that's when the Ethereals were like, "You need to come back." And he's like, "No." Again, this is where we're talking about. It's rare for anyone to refuse the Ethereals. Farsight is the most well-known example, and possibly the only example that we have of saying no to the Ethereals. And so he just decided that the worlds that he had reconquered were now an independent group, an independent region called the Farsight Enclaves.
Also, one of the other things that Farsight did that the Tau normally don't do is Farsight left a force on the planets themselves to defend the planets. Tau typically don't leave anything on planets. They will kill their enemies, and they won't reinforce those worlds. They'll just kill their enemies, and if the enemy is proving too great at their front line, they'll retreat to the worlds behind them, strip them of technology and anything that could give them an advantage against the Tau, and then fall back, because their style of warfare is very movement based, where Farsight's method of warfare is a little bit different, where he will reinforce those worlds, and he uses a lot more auxiliaries than normal. But again, that all comes from novels, and some of those novels contradict each other.
Well, what we do know for sure is that the Enclaves categorically reject and exclude Ethereals.
Mm-hmm.
His inner circle, which you were talking about, is the 8. It's an elite war council of specialist commandos, battlesuit pilots, and
an
there's
AI.
There's an Earthcast scientist in a Riptide suit. It is an example of how far the Enclaves have drifted from the orthodox caste boundaries. I would say the best summary for this is that Farsight, or Oshova, he's got a really long name. We just call him Farsight. Farsight is the Tau's rebel King Arthur. He's a heroic commander wielding a cursed ancient sword, leading a red armored breakaway empire that still believes in the greater good, just not the people who claim the right to speak for it. And not for nothing, the same guy who told me about the Tau being uplifted by the Ethereal or by the Eldar also pointed out that the symbol on Farsight's shield is not that dissimilar from a corn symbol. So take that for what you will. Again, that was very old, very long time ago, and the lore probably doesn't go that way anymore. This was before the regime change against Workshop 2, so it was under a whole different IP manager and things like that.
Now, I do want to be clear about his sword. As of right now, the most canon lore for his sword is that it is some unknown Xenos artifact,
right?
And it still transfers life, but the connections to it being a Catan phase blade, maybe not as current anymore. It being a crone sword, probably not anymore. And it being a demon weapon, probably not anymore.
Well, I mean, there are lots of fan theories about it.
Yeah.
I will read this one, and then I will ask you to take over for me for a little bit. Primogenitor, thank you so much for the super chat, and I love the Fabius File avatar. Tau are weak species. They can't even fight for their own survival without other species. It is a nature of the universe that the weak do not survive for long. Wow.
Tau by themselves held off the Imperial Navy, the what was it? The White Scars, the Raven Guard, the Ultramarines. They have fought and beat the Death Guard. They have defeated splinter fleets of Tyranids. Uh, they are not weak. They are one of the strongest factions in all of 40k. The problem is that their faster than light travel is extremely slow and needs to be extremely slow, because if it's not extremely slow, the Tau will start dominating the galaxy. They could breed as easily as humans. They don't have that problem. They have a short-lived lifespan that is typically shorter than the average humans, though some sources say that it's only 40 years. The more recent lore states that they just have a shorter lifespan than humans. Humans don't have an average lifespan in 40k because there's billions of different humans from different walks of life and everything. But the Tau can fight. Like that is one of their things, is they are really good at adapting technology from other races. And typically when they bring in other races into the fold of the greater good, it's through deception, deceit, horrendous acts. Like the greater they mind controlled the Vespid, they trick the Kroot, they force human colonies to listen to propaganda constantly, to break them, to have them fight against the Imperium and then take them over, join the greater good, and we definitely won't sterilize you, says the sterilizer. But the Tower are a very, very strong race that uses other races to perform certain tasks that they deem uncivil, which is melee combat. But to call them weak, no, 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 no. Tau originally killed the chapter master of the White Scars and a chapter master of the Raven
Guard. Yeah,
Yeah,
they put up a hell of a fight in the Damocles Gulf Crusade.
yeah. Like, that's not even counting in the fact that they've taken on Tyranid hive fleets. Well, splinter fleets. But still.
They are surprisingly strong as a faction. That's all I can say.
Yeah. Then we got another one from Necromancer Kobold.
He says, I also want more auxiliaries. Human and Votan dogs of war. The blind psychic owlbear Necessar. More Vespids, more aliens, those big worms and fishmen. Well, Biofoot would be very happy to hear you wanting more fishmen. I also wouldn't mind more auxiliaries.
How I think they do this is the same way they introduce abhumans into 40k. They do a kill team that is just like 7 different abhumans. And this kill team would just be kill team auxiliary. And it would just be a group of auxiliaries working together under possibly a Kroot Shaper or a Chasseret who's leading them. I think that would be the best way to handle it. So that way you have so much representation on the tabletop, but it doesn't take away from what the Tau army needs to be, because each army has an identity. And if you start introducing too many units that do the same thing, Space Marines have this problem. The certain units just don't get played, don't get bought, and then they just get discontinued. And people that did bought them get mad because, hey, this unit that I bought is no longer, viable. I'm looking at you, servo turret, and looking at you, suppressors. Those guys are gone, by the way. They're going to be removed.
Okay, so I'll say this. If they were to come out with a kill team of Guevesala, which is human auxiliaries as soldiers of the Tau, I would 100% be excited about that. I think that'd be really cool to see. If they were to come out with Votan auxiliaries, i.e. the Demiurge, or Demiurge, if you will, that would be really rad. I'd love to see that. Necessar, yes, please. They are psychic, by the way, and Necessar definitely are psychic. More Vespids would be cool. Yeah, I'm in favor of all of this stuff. I think it'd be really neat. In my head, it's probably cooler than what would come out, but at the same time, just more variety in 40k is always good, especially for lore. I mean, not for nothing, it would actually give us more to talk about.
I think they could have a squad similar to the Sisters of Battle or Imperial Agents Sanctifiers. Like, I think that kill team should be something like that, or the Imperial Agents, where it's like, hey, you get 2 big guys, 2 psychers, 2 guys with pistols, and then you flavor them.
Ricky Chapman, thank you for being a member. He says, Rogue Tau are a major part in our current campaign. Awesome. The Farside Enclaves are really neats. They're really neats. And Gary Garianson has some really interesting questions for us. He says, have you read the Elemental Council? No. Have you read it?
I have not. I've read Firecast a couple of wait, is that the old? Because the worst part is I read a bunch of the Tau lore a while ago. And I listen mostly to the audio dramas for the Tau because the audio dramas are amazing.
I
Fire
haven't.
Warrior was also a good book. It was okay.
So I haven't read Firecast either. Just to be clear, not yet. I'm catching up, guys. There is so many novels. There's 54 novels just for the Horus Heresy, and then there's 17 Primarch novels, and I'm working my way through that plus stuff like Void Scarred. I mean, we'll get to it. It's just you can't expect us to have read every little thing. We're trying. But the next question is the most interesting to me. He says, what do you think of their scientific perspective?
So, according to the Leagues of Votan, the Tau believe that they are the pinnacle of scientific advancement, and they're not. They need other races to give them the technological ideas in order to make them, quote unquote, better. But the Leagues of Votan walk around with rail rifles that are tiny, mind you, where the Tau's rail rifle is huge. I do like the tech that they have on the table. I like the experimental weapons and everything. I like that they start wars to test experimental weapons. That's a really cool one, where they'll just take a world separated from the Imperium, have the Imperium fight it, go down as saviors, and test all of their weapon systems. I do like I like their science, but I think that I like the fact that they themselves think that their science is better than everybody else's. Thus, if it's not directly made by them, it's somehow inferior because Tau have, again, like all races in 40K, the Tau themselves they believe themselves superior than every other race, including their auxiliaries. Like, they do believe that they're superior to them.
So I'm going to push back a little bit. I actually think the Tau may have the best scientific perspective in the setting. Now, let me explain. I believe they have an empirical and engineering driven approach. They treat the universe as something to observe, to model, to improve, and exploit through their collective effort. But their science is not value centered or intellectually free. It is subordinated to the greater good, okay, and managed through the rigid caste hierarchy. But they do favor repeatable technology and material explanations. They like experimentation. They like incremental improvement. These are all like very reasonable, rational ways to approach science and technological development. They do not have the Imperium's reflexive fear of innovation or tendency to treat machinery as sacred relics. So all the Tau weapons and drones and battlesuits and sensors and gravitic systems and vehicles, they're designed as usable tools that can be retrofitted in response to tactical evidence. Their culture is applied and problem-solving oriented, which I really like. It's even the Votan, who are extremely technologically advanced. Their stuff is largely based on an Imperial tech. Okay.
Yep.
That isn't to say that they don't also have a pretty interesting approach to science.
Yeah,
but they're just not
the ion weapons and everything.
Right, but they're not doing it in the same way that the Tau are. And the Eldar are incredibly technologically advanced, but they're just not innovating at all anymore. They're basically, we're done. We made it. We're the pinnacle. We don't need any more, right? They decided that they're better.
I think that the Eldar and the Necrons they have reached their crescendo. They're done. Their tech can only get degraded and worse as time goes on. The Imperium can still make new tech, and we've seen this. And there's multiple books about this, and it's about Belisarius Cawl making a whole bunch of new tech.
Primaris Marines, all that stuff, yeah.
They can make it. It's just heavily regulated and takes dozens upon hundreds of years to make.
10,000 years in the case of the Primaris Marines.
Yep. But I would argue that the true masters of technology in all of Warhammer 40K, the absolute pinnacle, is an Orc mech boy.
Well, they do have that built-in They have that built-in knowledge, and they just build.
They
like,
have an inherent knowledge of every single species technology, even those they've never met.
So it's kind of a yes but answer to you, Gary Garrison, because I do feel like they have scientific sophistication, but they also that knowledge is only encouraged when it advances the empire, when it serves the greater good, and that the ethereals are ultimately going to be the ones that decide if science needs to move in a different direction or not. That's where the problem lies.
Typically, also, the Tau's technology is responsive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's based usually around war. I do want to point this out. Tau's entire society is typically based around the next opponent, the next expansion. Yeah.
The Tau tend to believe that the universe is a technical problem that collective reason can solve. But then 40K keeps handing them these problems that are also demons and gods and nightmares with teeth. And they just are like, okay, and even like a god, like they accidentally created a god. So there's that. Are they right? Is the question Gary Garrison asks. I mean, for a certain value
from
of
their
rights,
point of view,
yeah, they are certainly more rational about science and scientific pursuits than most other factions. Would they make better followers of the imperial truth than humans were? Is the next question.
Ooh, so my answer to this is going to differ than Ross's. My answer is absolutely not. It's just a no, and it's simply because of one short story that made me fall in love with the Tau. It's a short audio drama where a Tau falls to their knees and praises a tech marine. And it's one of my favorite Death Watch short dramas, and I love it to death. It is so good. I would say the further, but again, this is all, loose canon. I would say that the further they are away from the ethereals, the more likely they are to fall into being like demon worshipping Xenos races that might actually completely fall to chaos, because they have no natural defense against chaos except their weakened souls. They're not like incorruptible like the Leagues of Votann are currently, which is stupid in my opinion. But that's more of a design choice by Games Workshop than an actual lore choice. Anyway.
Well, so the imperial truth is, the idea that there are no gods, there is no, all religion is superstition and should be, ignored for secular advancement. It was never simply about being open-minded or enlightened. Okay. It was also an authoritarian doctrine that declared humanity supreme to all other species, and
was the same with the greater good,
and was destined to rule the galaxy. If you frame the greater good as a version of the imperial truth, then yes, they follow that very well. But I would say that the Tau scientifically have a major blind spot. They can identify anomalous effects and build technology around them without necessarily grasping the metaphysical, demonic, or corruptive implications that all the older species have learned, often very painfully, to fear. And the Tau are just like, go ahead.
The Tau won't listen either. Like when humans warned the Tau that they were flying into the warp with no Guller field and no protection. Like literally you could look out the windows into the warp. The humans began praying, and they were one of the only ones not affected by the demons. Where the Tau had to fight a bunch of demons, and we're like, what the hell was that? And they're just like, oh yeah, we warned you.
Yeah, so that's my answer there. I think it's a very interesting comparison to make, though. And we got one from. Go ahead.
Do we want to save the next couple for the next break?
Yeah, let's. Okay, we've got some more. We'll save those for the next break because we have been talking for a while about these. So let's get back to it.
Whoops. Whoops. Hang on. I accidentally pushed a button and it yeah.
Let's talk about the sphere expansions and the rise of their empire. So
Alrighty.
the territorial growth of the Tau Empire is organized into what are called the sphere expansions. And these are military colonial campaigns during which they settle new systems, they conquer new systems, or they peacefully absorb.
Peacefully.
Yeah, peacefully absorb new worlds. And by the current era, the Tau Empire has undergone 5 such phases: the first sphere, second sphere, third sphere, and so on. And each time this expands them further. They start out, of course, with their single home world, and now they have considerable numbers of worlds. I don't want to give an actual number because the lore has changed many times about how many worlds they control, but they have several, possibly over 100 settled worlds. But the Imperium is largely ignorant of the exact size of the Tau Empire, which is one of the reasons why we don't know exactly how many worlds. Do you want to talk about any of these sphere expansions?
So the first sphere is kind of just boring.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, it is the one where they did find the Kroot, and we do have to explain how they got the Kroot.
Please. Yeah, I know this is one of your favorite things to talk about.
Okay. So, from the Tau's perspective, they were completely innocent in this, and they offered the Kroot to join the greater good.
The greater good.
The Kroot rejected at first, and then when the Imperium attacked, the Tau came in as swooping saviors, and the Kroot thus proclaimed their loyalty forever to the Tau because they protected Peck. So what actually happened is the Tau came in and were like, join the greater good. And the Kroot were like, no, we want to do things on our own. So the Tau antagonized the Imperium, flew past Peck. The Imperium attacked Peck, and then they turned around and attacked the Imperium, saving the Tau and saving the Kroot in the process, and thus the Kroot swore loyalty. So even to their most loyal auxiliaries, which are the Kroot, the Tau only got them through deceit. Now, you could argue that it wasn't deceitful what they did. They didn't join, and Peck was just a world that had Xenos on it that they could hide behind. But it is something that they did. And it's one of my favorite stories because it shows that even against their most trusted allies, they will look down on them. They will use them. And the Tau do use the Kroot in more barbaric manners. They tolerate the Kroot eating other creatures. They tolerate it. They don't like it. They tolerate it. Only because if they didn't tolerate that part of the Kroot, and the Kroot's religion, mind you, because Kroot are religious, the Tau try to beat that out of them and try to convince them that they'll use every and all propaganda that they have to beat religion out of their subordinates. But the Kroot's religion is so vital to their existence that they couldn't really get that whole aspect out of them. So now they just look down on them every time they're ceremonially eating something and passing on genetics and everything. But the Kroot are a avian species of humanoid that have a very large beak on their face, can speak multiple languages, which is very good. They have a way of navigating to their own homeworld, Peck, using a bird. They fly around in giant war spheres. Kroot are a very technologically advanced race, but they choose typically to not use their technology as often as possible. The Tau took their base weapon and made it a pulse weapon, so they made it shoot energy instead of projectiles. Some Kroot actually do reject that as well and stick to the standardized weapons that they have made.
Yeah, the Kroot, the plasma projectiles are old lore. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, well, they still shoot plasma in the new kill team.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, maybe there was a point where there was a point where Kroot rifles were just slug throwers. When we did an episode on the Kroot, during my research, I double checked that, and they were like, "Yeah, no, Kroot guns are just projectile weapons.
They are a projectile weapon, but they shoot an ion plasma round."
Well, okay, so in this lore, they had plasma rounds from the Tau that they fired from their guns. But when we did the episode on the Kroot, which if you want to go see an episode, we did a whole episode on the Kroot. They were limited to just slug throwers. They were like, no, we don't do that anymore. So if they're back to using plasma shots in their guns, that is a new development.
I think it's more to do with certain weapons within the kill team itself.
Okay, maybe.
And not their standard Kroot rifle, possibly.
Yeah.
Depending. But they do use a plethora of different technologies. The Tau have enhanced their technologies, and the Tau typically use them as fodder. I mean, valuable allies. They typically use the Kroot to rush into their opponents, have their opponents attack the Kroot, and then descend with their battle suits to destroy key targets while they're dealing with the Kroot. And then they'll take the Kroot back that survived.
Yeah, this was during they met during an orc invasion of Peck.
Oh yeah, sorry, it wasn't the Imperium, it was orcs. My apologies.
Yeah, the orcs had invaded the world. The Tau showed up. They observed, and then they were like, you know what? We're going to help these guys for reasons. And the Tau found that they both complemented each other's fighting styles very well. They worked very well together, and so this partnership lasted until they drove the orcs off of Peck. And then their Kroot leader called Angor Proc, he pledged the Kroot's service to the Tau Empire, effectively an alliance. I mean, you could argue that they're technically vassals, but the relationship is not that simple because the Kroot still keep their own homeworlds. They keep their culture. They keep their shapers. They keep their evolutionary dietary practices.
They keep their religion.
They're valued because of their ambush tactics and their wilderness skills and their adaptability and their close combat ability, which complements the Tau's firepower and technology. So, yeah, that's how that happened. The third sphere expansion.
Wait,
sorry, the second. We're still in the first. Yeah, that was the first sphere. Was the finding the Kroot.
Now right? There is another race that they found during the first sphere expansion, which are the Vespid.
Yeah, we'll get into them later.
Well, it's part of the first sphere, so we should get into it now.
All right, if you say so.
But
so who are the Vespids?
Quick overview: the Vespid are insectoid, human-esque looking creatures that the Tau use as auxiliaries. How they connected to them and how they communicated with them originally is we don't know. We know that the Watercast was involved, and the Watercast and the Earthcast made a specialized piece of technology that they put on their, a specialized helmet that uses pheromones to communicate to them. It's a mind control helmet. They mind controlled them.
They are flying wasp commandos. They're fast. They're hard to pin down. They carry radioactive guns. They're called neutron blasters. And they're led through translation helmets, quote unquote, translation helmets, that may either be a diplomatic triumph or the most suspicious headset in the galaxy.
Yeah. It's heavily theorized by mostly the fan base that it is a mind control helmet. Considering that they rarely have free will.
Yeah, it's presented as a communication solution, but the Imperial observers believe that they may also be a means of influence or control over the Vespids.
Yep.
So there's that. So that's the Vespid. They're probably worth a whole episode on their own.
Yeah. And then there's a third race, which is the Necessar, and the Necessar is psychic owl bears.
I mean, all right. The Necessar. So I first became aware of them in Battlefleet Gothic because they were part of the Tau fleets in Battlefleet Gothic. They had these little things called dhows, which are their little boats that they ride around in. They are highly psychic xenospecies. They are described as space bears, basically large Ursine creatures. They have pale quills, long snouts, clawed limbs, and no conventional eyes, according to the lore. They instead perceive their surroundings psychically. Their defining trait is a restless curiosity. A flotilla of Necessar exploratory vessels, they encountered the Tau early on and became one of its earliest non-Tau allied species. So yeah, it's still during the first year expansion. Mm-hmm. The Tau were surprisingly near 3 allies in their first year, which is kind of amazing.
Just very convenient.
The Necessar, they are poor ground combatants because they have very limited physical mobility, but they are valuable explorers and scouts, and especially voidfarers. They travel in these little elegant vessels called dhows, which are propelled and navigated by the captain's psychic power. For long interstellar voyages, the dhows are actually towed by Tau ships while the crew hibernates over long periods, which I think is great. They're psychic nomadic space bears that joined the Tau because they wanted to see the galaxy. They contribute their scout ships powered by telekinesis. They sleep through the long haul while the Tau tow them to the next adventure. That's necessary.
Somebody is asking a question that I think is interesting. Do the Kroot have better FTL
Yes.
than the Tau? Yes.
War Spheres, the Kroot ship, the War Sphere, is fully warp capable, and they have a being called the Kroot Hawk at the heart of the warp sphere that can navigate the warp, not unlike a human navigator. So why don't the Tau use Kroot ships? I don't know is the answer. I really don't know.
This has been something that's bugged the shit out of me, but I just imagine because of the way the Kroot talk and communicate, they basically talk like Icelandic people. You have to ask them the right questions to get the dialogue trees you need. Because they will tell you no details. How do you navigate the warp? We do. Okay, but how do you see where you're going, bird?
I suspect. Well, in our Kroot episode, we mentioned that the lore says that Kroot Hawks they feel a migratory urge to return to Peck, which means they know where Peck is at all times, which is kind of their Astronomicon in a way.
Yep.
But I believe it's a political reason why they don't use Kroot ships. I think it is the alliance with the Kroot to preserve their autonomy. They basically say that our ships are off limits. That the allies are the Kroot are allies, and they're troops that you can deploy on the ground, but they are not going to be absorbed completely into the Tau. Especially their fleet is not going to be absorbed into the Tau fleet, and I think that's probably because the Kroot see the warp spheres as not unlike a nest or egg home, if you will. Like I feel like they treat it far more sacred than other species treat a ship. Now, I don't have any. This is wild speculation. I have no lore to support this. This is my belief. Okay, that's what I think is true.
I still love the idea that they just didn't ask the right questions.
Homing pigeons beat the warps. Is kind of all right.
I see somebody going to Iceland in 2 weeks. Heck yeah! Make sure you go to the Penis Museum.
So we've covered the Kroot, the Nississar, and the Vespids. Thankfully, it's important to point out that there are humans in the Tau as well. They're called Guevesa. Some imperial worlds have been conquered by the Tau, and those populations still exist. All right, so where were we?
The second sphere of expansion.
The second sphere of expansion. So this is where we get the Damocles Gulf Crusade. The Tau borders came into contract with the fringe worlds of the Imperium of Man. This is the first time the two factions encountered each other since that Mechanicus expedition 6,000 years ago. And the Tau watercast envoys had already started trying to establish trade relations with the frontier worlds of the Imperium, and they were exchanging goods and technology. But the Imperium became alarmed about the idea of alien contamination. You can actually read about this in the Caiaphas Cain novels. They do, in fact, cover this period of time, which is pretty interesting.
Also, Caiaphas Cain refers to the Tau battlesuits because he doesn't know what they're called as Tau dreadnoughts.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really fun.
So the Imperium eventually just decided to wipe them out and launched the Damocles Gulf Crusade, which smashed into Tau territory. It destroyed a lot of outgoing settlements before getting into this grinding, bloody stalemate.
We got to do an episode on this.
I plan to. I mean, it's on the list. Yeah. The Damocles Gulf.
It's such a cool war because this is the first time, because the Imperium thought it was going to be a quick war.
Yeah, they thought it was going to be a short, victorious war.
Because it was declared a war of extermination, which means that they were just going to go to their homeworld and obliterate it. Right? They were just going to exterminate us to homeworld and just call it good. They're dead. But when they got there, the Tau put up a fight, and they were just like,
a hell of a fight.
Oh shit! And they called in Space Marines, and they're just like, one chapter of Space Marines, that's enough. The Tau killed one of their commanders, and they were like, "Hey guys, we need some help.
Send more Space Marines, please." Basically, neither side could dislodge the other. And eventually, what's interesting about the Damocles Gulf Crusade is it actually ended in a ceasefire. Basically, the Imperial commanders accepted Tau peace overtures and withdrew, and largely because High Fleet Behemoth was coming into the region, and it was not aimed at the Tau; it was aimed at the Imperium. So the Imperium's like, "We got bigger fish to fry. We'll come back.
Yeah,
we'll take peace for now." So that was the second sphere expansion. The third sphere expansion is where High Fleet Gorgon gets involved, which is a splinter of High Fleet Behemoth. This is when they fought the Tyranids, and the Tau found that the Tyranids were actually evolving to withstand their energy weapons, which is largely what they use in combat. And the Imperium finally destroyed it with the help of the Tau. They actually fought side by side in this battle. But both empires lost some mini colony worlds, and there was a tomb world where the Tau fought side by side with the Ultramarines against a Necron uprising, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
Necron tomb world awoke. And
just really quickly, just so I could tell you how many Space Marine chapters the Tau beat. Now, keep in mind, this isn't the entire chapter. This is just companies that were involved. They beat the Iron Hands, the White Scars, the Subjugators, Nova Marines, Knights of the Emperor, Ultramarines, Hammer of Dorn, Red Scorpions, Scar Lords. That's how many Space Marine chapters were involved in Damocles, and the Tau won.
The third sphere expansion ends with a pretty interesting moment where it was led by two people. It was led by Commander Shadowsun, which is we will talk a little bit more about her in a second. She's a very well-known, she's one of the top commanders, one of their top generals. And a guy called Anva. Now, Anva was the head ethereal.
He's still alive.
No, he's not.
Totally still alive.
He's absolutely not alive.
That is propaganda, Ross. He's totally still alive. They have a hologram. I mean, they have his body right there. You can see it if you just look over here and don't look directly at the body. And if it blinks, that's just you going crazy.
So Anva was assassinated by a Alexis assassin, which is very surprising because Alexis assassins are typically sent after psychic targets, which is really important to point out. And it infiltrated his heavily guarded command bunker without being detected, killed him, and they had also targeted Farsight and Shadowsun, but they weren't able to kill them. A Calidus assassin was exposed and killed by Shadowsun. The Vindicator shot at Farsight, but it was blocked. And an Eversor was destroyed by the 8. So they had a full team of assassins that were sent after these leaders, and only one that got killed was Anva.
Which is hilarious because Space Pope got killed.
Space Pope. Can you find a picture of his model?
I could try.
So Anva, the ethereal leadership, they did not want to tell everybody that Anva had been killed because he was their head guy. So rather than announce it and appoint a successor, they replaced him with a holographic simulacrum, which may or may not be run by AI. It continues to, this holographic version of him still continues to appear and speak and issue guidance as if he were still alive, this supreme ethereal. So they did kill him. The Imperium did kill him. A Alexis assassin murdered him, but the Tau leadership responded by turning their dead ruler into a hologram and pretending it never happened. There he is. That's Anva.
Ross, you are speaking in like imperial propaganda. Anva is totally fine on his floating chair over there. He's as alive as Mitch McConnell.
Oh, can you find a picture of Farsight while you're at it? While I talk about Shadowsun, Can you find a picture of Farsight and Shadowsun while I talk about Shadowsun for a minute? So Commander Shadowsun is the other big character we need to cover. She is their foremost living field commander and master of a type of combat called the Cow Yawn or Patient Hunter. Where Farsight is aggressive and decisive and confrontational, Shadowsun wins through deception. She draws her enemies forward, she hides the true strength of her force, and then she springs traps at the precise moment that the enemy is exposed. She and Farsight were both the disciples of this guy called Commander Puretide, who was their General Patton, if you will. He was their so the most gifted students of Puretide were both Farsight and Shadow Sun. Her signature name comes from this early campaign in which she used a man-made eclipse and surprise assault to decapitate an orc force. I love the idea that she is the eclipse. That's just so cool. And this is an example of how she prefers to use psychological pressure and misdirection and carefully staged killing blows. Not for nothing, Shadow Sun does pilot a very modified, personalized version of a stealth suit as her form of armor, while Farsight uses a crisis suit. So she's kind of an assassin and a force multiplier all in one. And she is, after Anva was killed, she is kind of the pivotal symbol of continuity for the Tau Empire. She's loyal to the Tau state, and she's loyal to the greater good, and she's loyal to the Ethereals. But her history, including her encounters with Farsight and what happens during the Fourth Sphere expansion, which we will get into shortly, it makes her a very useful lens for the tension between Tau idealism and the galaxy's realities. If Farsight is the Tau's red-armored rebel general with the cursed sword, Shadow Sun is the Empire's invisible knife. Yeah, there's Farsight right there in its cool red armor. Shadow Sun, meanwhile, she is the commander who will let you believe you're winning right up to the very point where every gun in the valley opens fire and kills you. You will think you're winning until she takes you out.
She also she snuck up on a Raven Guard.
Yeah. Shadow Sun is one of the main reasons, her and Farsight are two of the main reasons why the Damocles Gulf Crusade went very poorly for the Imperium. They're very, very good commanders.
Now, one thing you might be confused about is how are these characters still alive? Well, that's because of GW plot armor. I mean, they keep them usually in stasis or use nanomachines to keep them aged younger. They do have a type of rejuvenate, but it's rare. They typically keep their commanders on ice, which I think is pretty cool.
Again, they have holograms, so There is a book called The Blades of Damocles, and it's a novel by Phil Kelly. And there's a guy called Commander Bravestorm in this book, which, hey, that's a cool name. That's a cool name. I like that one. He finds this Imperial dreadnought and finds that it's the space marine inside of this dreadnought is over 6,000 years old, which is older than their civilization, basically. And this discovery horrifies him because he realizes that the guy inside the sarcophagus is older than, is old enough to remember when his ancestors were living in caves. It's not 10,000 years old, just to be clear. It's 6,000 years, which is still freaking long. And Bravestorm, I mean, he's the Tau. They opened up this wrecked dreadnought. They expected a machine, and what they found was a 6,000-year-old half-dead ultramarine. And this warrior is still fighting. He's like, and Bravestorm is just like, holy crap, this guy still wants to fight. Holy shit. It's a big deal. That's the only thing I want to bring up.
I think one of my favorite things, and this is also during Damocles, is when the Tau found out that Titans are real. It's one of the most important, pivotal moments in the entire battle is when Tau find out that all of the propaganda that the gay Vesa have been speaking is true. And the goddamn church started walking at them. And it's like, there's this whole line in one of the stories where the Tau are like, but that's a terrible waste of technology, that there's no way that they would do that. The loss of one of those would be the equivalent of like a starship. You can't lose all of that. It's too much resources in one unit. And then the goddamn thing walks over the hill and they're just like, we made a terrible mistake.
Well, it changed their way of battle too, because the Tau, they had heard that the Imperium had city-sized walking war machines, and they assumed it was propaganda. Until one stood up, opened fire, and forced them to invent an entire anti-Titan doctrine, which is where we get the Riptide suits. The shock was severe. Their initial response was absolute disbelief, and they were like, "Oh my god, the walking god machines are real."
What do you mean they're going to church? No, I mean the church is going to you.
See, at the time, before during up to the point of the Damocles Gulf Crusade, Tau weapons and war doctrine was optimized for armor and infantry and aircraft and conventional fortifications. Okay, facing something that had void shields and cathedral-sized firepower, and just these ridiculously powerful machines. It was outside anything they'd ever done before, so they had to call in a spacecraft strike to destroy it. They had to basically blow it up from orbit, and in the most Tau fashion, after it was destroyed, they didn't worship it. They were like, we need to study this and build a countermeasure. And so this is where they get the Manta missile destroyers and the Storm Surge and the KX-139. I think the Talmar Supremacy armor. Just look it up. It's and Riptides. This is where that all come from. So yeah, that was a pretty fun moment.
And if you watch the animation Exodite, you know that Riptides aren't really that good against Warlord Titans.
I mean, Titan. I want to do a whole episode of Titans. Titans are amazing. They're one of my favorite things in setting. And they're different from Knights. They are very, very different from Knights. But we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
So where should we go from here?
Okay, so we could go on to the fifth. We're done with the fourth sphere, right?
No, we're done with the third.
Okay, let's get through the fourth sphere, because the fourth sphere is really quick, and
they
go through a wormhole.
So this is where the Tau Empire ran into absolute catastrophe. Is the fourth sphere expansion? They tried to break out of the confinement after the stalling of the third sphere, which we talked about. The Imperial Resistance was blocking them from one direction. High Fleet Gorgon was blocking them from another. And then the Sautech Necrons were in another direction. So they were kind of boxed in. And this is the Great Rift opens. The Ethereal Council's like, hey, we need to figure something out here. And they launch this expedition under a guy called Commander Surestrike. And it uses these experimental, what are called slipstream modules, which is kind of an antimatter-based FTL technology. It was intended to give them unprecedented faster than light travel, but
it's made out of what's what's the matter?
But what happens is they simultaneously activated all these slipstream drives, and it caused a chain reaction and opened up a massive rift in reality. There are some sources that say they were basing their slipstream drive on warp drives that they recovered from Imperium ships, but they just didn't fully understand how it worked. Anyway, the fourth sphere fleet was swallowed by the warp. A lot of it was destroyed. The survivors endured years of demonic assaults and terror in a realm that the Tau were profoundly unprepared to understand. I think that's probably the best way to put it. They were eventually saved by this vast mini-armed warp entity. Do you want to talk about this, Alexis? Because this is kind of wild.
The Tau God.
Yes.
What is it? Tau Va?
Tau Va, that's right. Yes.
So this, we don't know what the hell to call it. This warp entity, because we don't know if it's a demon. This many-faced warp entity protected the fleet as it flew through the warp, which would be the first instance outside of a living saint of a benevolent warp entity. The humans aboard called it a god.
Its face was kind of a blend of Tau features and Vespid and Kroot, and it shielded all their ships long enough to escape. And it freaked the Tau out deeply. They were like, oh my god, what is that thing? And all their auxiliary forces were like, okay, well, that's clearly a god. That's our, we believe in the greater good. And the Tau were like, okay, that is absolutely insane. So the four sphere guys, they basically murdered all of their auxiliaries. They were like, you guys created something we don't understand. We have no frame of reference for this. Whatever it is, it's awful and we don't want it. So we're just going to kill all of you.
Oh yeah. Also, somebody's pointing out our Eldar gods benevolent. According to the Eldar.
Yeah, Caleb and Chicane is not benevolent. Not even to the other gods.
Some Eldar gods are benevolent, maybe. Isha, probably.
Maybe, probably, yeah.
But we don't know enough about them.
For a certain value of benevolence.
This is a confirmed warp entity that is benevolent, as far as we know.
Yeah, I mean, it saved them from demons, so there's that.
It would be really cool if we got Tau Va as an actual like avatar for the Tau itself, and Vashtor was trying to kill it. Because then you
So
could have Tau tech versus Vashtor's tech, so demon tech versus hyper advanced tech.
the massacre of the auxiliaries, who I will remind you are entirely innocent in all this. They were just along for the ride, helping out the Tau, doing the thing that they do as auxiliaries. But the massacre of the auxiliaries is kind of one of the darker moments in Tau history. It's one of the grim dark moments in Tau history where they were like so freaked out by a god that they decided to kill everyone that was involved. That wasn't them.
And yes, the auxiliaries did get possessed by demons and shit, and the Tau were facing a bunch of demons, and they had super PTSD and junk like that. But they eventually called home.
Yeah, the Tau, they were trying to build this rational empire around an idea, the greater good. And their allies may have believed in that idea so hard that they were able to create a warp entity or god out of it. And that god reached into the warp and saved them. And yeah, it caused them to freak the hell out. And they just decided to kill all the auxiliaries rather than face any further manifestations.
Now, the other thing about this is that we don't know what actually created this, because the Tau themselves probably created this, and the humans just acknowledged it. But the Tau blamed the humans because clearly the humans are the ones that did this. But they didn't go around purging any of the other auxiliaries. Like, they purged a lot of them, but they didn't completely remove certain auxiliaries like they did with the humans that gave Asa, where they killed almost all of them. Yeah, it was brutal.
This would be a good time to go back and look at those other super chats. So where were we?
Yes, it would. We are right here. Boop.
All right, Sarmillion Bloodweaver. He says, what's one auxiliary species and one underdeveloped aspect of the Tau you wish Games Workshop would spotlight?
Despot. One underdeveloped. I'd like the Kroot Headhunter Kindred on the tabletop and more Kroot, because I want more Kroot. They're not really underdeveloped. They are very developed at this point, but I want more. And I'm a jerk, and I am demanding this. The Vespid would be cool, but I kind of want them to have maybe Gavesa could be cool on the battlefield, but I don't know what they would do that everything else can't do already.
A Vespid Queen would be good to see, and a Vespid Royal Guard. Like, I feel like there's a lot you could do with that aspect of it.
Yes. Yeah, that could be really cool. A codex, almost like a supplement of auxiliaries could be really cool, but I think it should be more like an Imperial Agents list for them. What is something that you wish the Tau would spotlight? What GW would spotlight? Probably more about their god. I really like the idea of their god. I think that could be really, really, really cool, because it's only mentioned like really once or twice, and that's it. What about you, Ross?
I don't know. Yeah, I've kind of reached the end of like that's as far as I can really say at the moment is I don't really know. There's a lot of mystery involved with this, so
Okay.
I would like to see more development of it before I could answer anything more than that. Because we don't know anything about the old ones. We barely know anything at all. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't really know.
So we got a question from Ice Veins here.
Right, Ice Veins, good to see you. Oh, he's got the star. He's got the Carcharodon's emblem there for his
so cool. I love
his avatar. Has a Tau ever fell to chaos? I mean,
yes.
Arguably Oshova. They have been possessed, if that's what you
mean. Think there's 3 Tau that have fallen to chaos at this point.
What value would chaos put in a Tau soul, given that their souls are dim and a very weak presence in the warp?
Blood.
Not a lot of value.
As far as we know, Khorne has possessed 2 Tau, and Tzeentch has possessed 1. Khorne seems to like the Tau because they are a warring species that is constantly evolving to battle. So I could see Khorne being more interested not in them, because they are not really that strong, but they are a race that brings war to everyone else, thus spreading more bloodshed and pain and death around the galaxy. Tzeentch also, because of all the technological advancement. Tzeentch loves himself a good scheme.
Yeah, there was a water cast that was manipulated by Tzeentch.
Yep.
Chaos Tau exists as rare individual tragedies. They are not a faction. And the Tau, in general, the Tau are very hard to tempt. They're not impossible to corrupt, but the moment the warp gets enough direct access, their lack of experience becomes the biggest danger.
Yep.
The same guy who told me about the uplifting of the Tau also said that the demons and chaos tend to look at souls like the Tau as very dim souls. It tastes like cardboard. It's something you can eat, but you don't really want it that much.
It's like British food.
Oh, damn. Ooh, I mean, that is a burn.
The full English breakfast is really good, though. I'll give them that.
I don't like the blood sausage, but I do like most of the English breakfast.
Fair enough.
Anyway, that's wow. Okay. Dynaman. He comes back again. Love you, Dynaman. You've been really helpful this episode. Really appreciate you. He says, I do love the Crutox as a mount. It reminds me of my favorite prehistoric animal called a Chalicotheres. They were related to rhinos and tapirs and look like gorilla horses. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're really cool.
That's sweet.
That's pretty dope. I do love my gorilla Crute with a big rifle on the back of it. But you know what I want back? Dinosaur Crute. I want back my dinosaurs. I want more dinosaurs in 40K. I don't care how dumb it is.
Lord Warren, it says, this is one of our mods, by the way. Welcome, Lord Warren. I do feel like the Anva plotline needs to be moved forward now. AI hologram is a sticking plaster. Plenty of ambitious Ons waiting to take over. Probably. I think I think this is going to be something we'll see in the next Tau Codex, is some sort of advancement of this.
Do you know how I would do this? They didn't want to announce that Anva was killed. But if they need something to unify the Tau, they could use his assassination as a method of
make him a martyr.
Yeah, make him a martyr. And then have like one of his bodyguards take over as the new Anva. Or they could just have somebody else take the name Anva and be like, I'm actually not dead. I've been rejuvenated to the power of greater good.
Donovan, as you said, he might be AI. When Anva asks, is Farsight a traitor? He answers, that's a great question, and you have good instincts for asking it. In reality, it depends on who you ask. It's not just a complex issue. It's vital to how you see the greater good. Wow. I kind of want the hologram version to be like Clippy. You know, I see you're trying to lead the Tau Empire. Would you like to have help with that?
Oh, Clippy, we were blessed when we had the.
That's very funny. Ricky Chapman says almost everyone forgets that Farsight and Shadowson were part of a trio with Shazo Monat Kais, the master of the Monat, lone warrior. Kais, of course, this is the character from Fire Warrior. Part of a trio. Do you mean a triad? Were they like in a relationship? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, they were three facets of the war, and now
we have the
twins, which were also triplets, and one died. So that keeps happening to them. A third keeps dying when they try to do triplets.
Let's talk about the Fifth Sphere, which is the most recent expansion, and then we'll jump into the Styles of War. I think be a good way.
Yeah, I'm just checking if there were any more super chats from that I missed. Okay, good. We're good.
We're caught up.
Oh wait, somebody said, "Did my cheer get skipped?" Mornington Crescent. Let me try to find it really quickly.
Yeah, if Lord Vorn can help out with looking for those, that'd be really great.
Shadowson and Farsight are hard to find.
Shadowson and Farsight they seem to have been in some sort of relationship. I think that's fair to say. Before we talk about the Fifth Sphere expansion, though, we need to talk about a thing called the Startide Nexus. You know what the Startide Nexus is, Alexis?
Yes, but I'm going to try to find this the super chat really quickly.
So Dynaman just reposted it.
Oh, well, where is it?
It's the most recent in the chat.
Okay. There we go.
This is from Mornington Crescent. Apologies for missing that, by the way. To reiterate something I've said before, the Tau feel like what the Imperium was before the heresy: vibrant, fast-growing, heavily tech-based. They have their schism, and now their leader's a ghost on a throne. History repeats as a tragedy, and the Tau are just following the same steps. Oh, that's a pretty interesting
I have always viewed it this way too.
That's cool. I like that.
They just didn't have a Horus heresy yet.
And Dynaman says this was his super chat we missed. I kind of get what Necromancer was saying, I think. So I think it's more about their initial presentation of being the good guys, and then after the backlash, they went, no, they do brainwashing. Personally, I think the original version was evil enough. They were basically the British Empire in space. It just wasn't presented well.
Yeah. But even in their original lore, in the book that Ross has, they talk about some of the shit that they do that's pretty evil. It's just, again, Fire Warrior showed them as the hero, and all the advertising around it showed the Tau as the good guy of 40K. And GW didn't have a Warhammer community at the time. So, yeah.
I'll get into it in a minute because I do want to talk about their forced sterilization. But we need to, backing up, talk about the Startide Nexus. This is a stable wormhole-like dimensional passage, and it connects the Tau Empire's core to this place called the Nemyar Atoll, which is a distant pocket of space deep in the Imperium side of the galaxy. It was created accidentally by the Fourth Sphere expansion. Remember when they had that they all got sucked into the warp? That's created this thing called the Startide Nexus. It's both a strategic miracle for the Tau and a potential catastrophe, because it enables the Fifth Sphere of expansion to send forces and colonists and supplies rapidly into a region that would otherwise be impossibly remote for them. They travel very slowly by other faction standards through space. They're very limited by their drives. So
in terms of speed, the Tyranids are still the slowest. Then it's the Tau.
But the Nexus goes both ways, because it's also a direct doorway into the heart of their empire from the other side. And
I don't see a single problem with that, Ross. Don't worry about it.
So Shadow Sun, she led the Fifth Sphere expansion through the Startide Nexus, reunited with all the scarred survivors of the Fourth Sphere, and expanded into this Nemyar Atoll, until a Death Guard armada showed up and tried to seize the passage. And this was a massive fight. The Tau did ultimately hold the line, but at great cost. And some Death Guard ships did enter the Nexus, but they did not, strangely, they did not come out on the other end. So we're not sure what happened to them. It's a galaxy-spanning backdoor for the Tau, and it enabled them to do the Fifth Sphere expansion. And I think that's basically all we know about the Fifth Sphere expansion at this point, right?
Yeah. Outside of the lore itself, the reason that the Startide Nexus exists is to bring Tau into the greater 40K setting, because Tau were stuck in that little spot, and GW wrote them into a corner where they put enemies on all of the sides of them, and we're just like, the Tau are definitely there. They can fight somebody, and it's like, no, they actually can't. They need to be able to travel around the galaxy freely in order to engage with everybody, so that the battles on the tabletop would make more sense. So they came up with this as a means of getting the Tau around the galaxy, so you could have Tau fighting against the Iron Warriors at the Iron Warriors home planet, which could be pretty cool. Not Iron Warriors, Iron Hands. God damn it.
So Parker Maestro points out that in the Shadow Sun novel, he says it was confirmed that Goddess Tava killed them. We here at Lorebeards, we treat the novels as lesser canon than the what's in the core rule books and the codexes. The most recent stuff is what's actually true. Novels are, by Games Workshop's own admission, not always true. They may be canon, but they're not always. What happened is not necessarily accurate. So it has. You can say confirmed in a novel, and that may be true for that novel. But it's important to point out we don't really look at it that way. We look at it as, until it's in a codex or a rule book, it's just sort of a story.
I think in the Psychic Awakening book that has them killing the Gevesa, but I don't know if that's. Okay, I will admit
We're
that
talking.
I
This is about the Death Guard, specifically about the Death Guard who
oh
went
yeah,
through
the
the
Death Guard.
Star Time
Yeah.
Nexus. This is not about Gwevesa.
Okay, no, sorry, I was
So
thinking of the possession and how the Tauva was the thing that killed some of them. My apologies.
that's different. That's fourth sphere expansion, not fifth sphere.
But we do know that Typhus actually went toe to toe with some of them, and they couldn't figure out his plagues yet. Again, with Tau, it's always yet.
So one of the main things to keep in mind about the fifth sphere is that the fifth sphere expansion, Shadow Sun did take in all the fourth sphere guys. Okay, and there's a lot of trauma that they inherited from that. So the fourth sphere commanders, they carried out a lot of brutal purges. They massacred prisoners. They treated their auxiliaries as expendables, the ones that were left. There were a lot of atrocities that were caused by the fourth sphere guys. So Shadow Sun and the Ethereal Council, they came in and they punished some of them. They redistributed some of them. They re-educated the worst offenders, re-educated in the greater good,
Force re-education.
And so the fifth sphere is outwardly a showcase for the greater good, but internally it contains all these veterans who returned from the warp convinced that the greater good's multi-species ideal had nearly damned all of them to eternal destruction.
Which I think is going to be the catalyst for their Horus Heresy.
So that's the fifth sphere. That catches us up on that, and now we can talk about the different styles of war. Do you want to talk about? Do you want to pick one of them and go from there?
So let me just make sure I get them correctly, because every time I play against Tau, I say the wrong one, and it bugs me. So I just got to make sure. Okay, it's Mun Ka and Cao Yang. Cao Yang is the patient hunter. Mun Ka is the I'm going to throw haymakers at you as quickly as possible.
The killing blow.
Yep, the killing blow.
Yeah.
I see a question. So Farsight isn't the Horus Heresy? No, I don't think he is.
No.
I think he's going to be the savior of the Tau.
Maybe.
If
you can unshackle them from the Ethereals, perhaps.
Yes. I think the Ethereals are going to go to war with each other, but that's neither here nor there. So Mun Ka is the killing blow. This is the rapid attack and hyper maneuverable style of warfare that the Tau are mostly known for from the Imperium. And they attack rapidly, they find openings, they hit as hard as they can, and then they retreat. They punch, run, and every time they hit something, they're killing it. They're going after generals, they're going after commanders, they're going after like super heavy vehicles, titans. They're going to kill the thing that you are surrounding in order to deal as much of a blow to your psyche as your army itself. And once they kill that thing, they're going to fall back, and then they're going to come back again and constantly just hammer at you until you're finally defeated. It's a very maneuverable style of warfare. This is what the Tau are mostly known for, is hyper maneuverability, getting around the battlefield, killing things, fighting where you don't expect them, but fighting on the front lines as hard as they can. Then you have Cao Yang. Cao Yang is fighting from where you don't expect them. This is very how the Raven Guard like to fight. Striking at commanders specifically, hitting targets, waiting patiently for your enemy to move into like canyons and things like that, where they're easier to prey upon, destroying like supply lines, hitting, using the crew to flush out enemies, to attack them, pincer maneuvers, things like that.
The Tau do not ask, how do we win this fight? They ask, what makes the enemy able to fight at all? And then they cut that vital point out, either with Mun Ka, or they lure the enemy into destroying itself with Cao Yang. Now, there is a third way of war, which, of course, is tied to your favorite video game, Fire Warrior. It's called the Monads, which is translated to the Lone Warrior or the Lone Hunter. Yeah. It is a military philosophy centered on a single warrior operating independently as a complex weapon system, or a complete. Well, I mean, complex is probably a better way to put it, because the idea is that this guy can use any means necessary, essentially, at his disposal. Monats emphasizes initiative and self-reliance and the ability to find, assess, and eliminate a critical threat without immediate support. The archetypical practitioner of Monat is Shasla Kais from he's the protagonist of the game Fire Warrior, which we mentioned earlier in the stream.
Keep in mind that game is not canon.
But his solo rampage through the Imperial and Chaos War Zone led to this whole thing. It's the exception to the greater good, because this doctrine says that one warrior who is properly trained and properly armed can become an entire army on his own when the mission leaves no room for backup. It is the John McClane way of war. Basically, it's Die Hard, the Tau version.
There is a different character in the Dawn of War games.
Yeah, that's a different guy.
The character from Fire Warrior is very specifically a character from Fire Warrior and the book. The Dawn of War character is different, but has a very similar name.
He was Shazo Kais, or Commander Kais, and it's heavily implied to he's the same guy, but we don't know that's the truth. I would like to believe that he is, but at the same time, Kais might be a pretty common name. You never know. Might be like Smith, I don't know. Or so yeah, technically it has the same name, which is why the question came up. But the way of war does not come from Dawn of War; it comes from the Fire Warrior. All right, so now we get to talk about the most recent history. Are you familiar with the Taros campaign, Alexis?
Taros campaign? Not. Wait, isn't that a Forge World book?
It is. It absolutely is.
That's the Imperial Guard versus them, isn't it?
Well, it's Guard. It's mostly Guard, but also some Space Marines. But this is where we get some. This is where we get some of the Raven Guard vaults as well, I think.
Yep.
But this is one of their more recent things. Do we have is this probably a good time to look at the super chats as well?
We only have 2 right now, so yeah.
Okay, well we could. All right. Iceman says, do you think Gilliman would ever work with the Tau, given that he works with the Eldar?
Yes.
I don't see why not.
Yes. Yeah, Gilliman would look at the Tau and try to broker peace. As weird as that is, until the Tau start betraying him and moving into his territory, which in the 500 worlds, it's very strange that they don't really fight Tau in it, because Tau are on the edge of the 500 worlds.
Yeah, you'd think they'd be more involved, honestly.
Yeah, and they're not, and it's a very strange thing, but I do think that Gilliman would surrender a couple of his worlds in exchange for the Tau's compliance. Otherwise, they'd have to face the wrath of the entire Ultramarines, which they could probably handle, to be honest. And then we got one from Dynaman. I think I remember reading somewhere that the Tau used the Necessar ships to kind of bounce their fleets off the warp to do FTL. Yeah, they skim through it.
They skim. That's how they do short warp jumps. At least that's one of the older lore descriptions, is that they skim the warp. I don't know if that's still canon. That's a really good question.
This was back and forth edition, so I don't know if this is still canon or if it was. Kind of. On a related note, Tau have the best music in Dawn of War 1. Yes, they do. They hands down do. Oh, and we have this, because I just saw this just now.
Tau versus Covenant. Who do you think would win? I don't know the lore of Halo very well, so that's I do not know.
How big is the Covenant? Because that's always my go-to, is whenever we talk about like universe verse, it's always the Imperium has more, so it'll eventually win through attrition. But I do think that the Tau could probably adapt to their tech, but I think the Covenant can also adapt to the Tau's tech.
Yeah, I did double check the FTL thing. The older lore said they had drives that they could skim the boundary between real space and the warp, but the later codexes have shifted them to the sublight relativistic propulsion drives as their interstellar travel, and then they went to the slipstream module. So it's questionable if that was still true. It's certainly one of the earlier aspects of their lore that they skimmed the warp. But
yeah. I mean, there's probably some Tau that do.
Taros
That's the easiest way to thinking about it.
Probably, yeah, some maybe, because nothing is a monolith in 40k. So briefly, the Taros campaign. It's there was a desert mining world called Taros. It defected to the Tau Empire. The Imperium wanted it back. The forces involved included the Talaran Desert Raiders, because it was a desert world, Elysian Drop Troops, Death Corps of Krieg, Acadian Shock Troops, the Avenging Suns Space Marine chapter, and White Scars and Raptors. So this was round 2 for the White Scars with the Tau.
They got it this time.
And even more Titans were involved. Taros was not the Tau beating in token force. This was the Tau facing the Imperial Guard Army, Space Marines, Navy aircraft, Mechanicus, Skitarii legions, Titans, and the logistics is what caused the Imperium to lose. This is yet another victory by the Tau against the Imperium. The Tau have a strong record of fighting against the Imperium, I should point out, and Taros is part of that. It is one of the more recent events in their history. This was 998 M41, so to be clear where that is in the timeline. Then you get the there's also a battle on a place called Kavarium Alpha, which is kind of fun because it was an undersea battle against the Space Wolves. Holy shit, I want to read a book about that.
Yes, please.
Please tell me about the undersea combat between the Space Wolves and Tau. I want to read that. Then we get the era Indomitus, the most recent era, where the Great Rift rips the galaxy in half. We should really just do an episode on the era Indomitus, frankly.
We really should. But
this is
again,
after
all of that is up to our lovely lore seekers.
That's true. This is actually a great point. This is a great time to point out that we have slightly changed the way we do polls. So we are now putting up the poll for the next episode after this episode ends. In fact, we can announce right now what won the Wednesday poll for this upcoming Wednesday's show.
And
so
what
let me just bring that up, and I will let you know.
It was me.
So the options for Wednesday were a tier list of either the worst jobs at 40K mysteries, or the Emperor's worst decisions. And the winner is we're doing a tier list of 40K mysteries on Wednesday.
Ooh, okay.
So right after this episode, I will put up a poll for next Saturday's show. Go vote in that, and we will announce the winner in our Wednesday show. That's how we're going to do it from now on. Is we're going to do them sequentially, and that'll give you guys like a time to get excited about what's coming up. So that is a new thing that we are trying here on the show. It's a good time for me to point that out. And hey, if you have enjoyed this deep dive into the grim darkness of the far future, do us a favor, hit the like button and the subscribe button so that we can spread our heresy through the algorithm to even more unsuspecting minds. We appreciate it.
It helps out so much.
If you want to know more about the Era Indomitus and the Great Rift, we have an episode on the Fall of Cadia where we talk a little bit about that. But we do need to just do an episode on the Era Indomitus.
Yeah, we have to get everyone caught up on what is current in Warhammer 40K.
Right.
That's super important.
Yeah.
I have this book somewhere.
Which book?
The Taros campaign book.
The Taros campaign. I own that one. That's one of the ones I own. The Forge World books for the campaigns were really quite awesome.
Oh my god, they were so good.
So,
actually, the number of casualties is not that bad.
I have a question for you, Alexis.
Yes.
Can the greater good be sincere while also being coercive?
I mean, every single politician in the history of forever can try to be good and evil at the same time. It's a matter of perspective. So,
well, yes. I think this is the age-old question of politics, and it's part of the human condition, is that we often will trade our freedom for security and prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
And the Ethereals are a great example of that with the Tau. They are the supreme leaders. They are the ones that everyone follows, but the Ethereals are guiding them on a path that is not necessarily the natural order for the Tau, or where the Tau would have gone without the Ethereals being present. Is it better or worse? I'm not in a position to make that call. Can the greater good be sincere while also being coercive? Yes, it absolutely can be sincere while also being coercive. And the closest parallel I can give to the greater good is probably the post-scarcity society of Star Trek.
I was actually thinking of Stalinism, but
I mean, it's a on the Venn diagram. There's an overlap between those two things, right?
Yeah, and that's the Tau.
Because the greater good is idealistic. It is, hey, let us all work together for this ideal. But the ideal is set. The ideal and the direction to get to that ideal is set only by a chosen few, the elites, the ethereals, and everyone else has no choice. They just have to do it.
Like, one of the big things when I first read the Tau is I just got done reading like Animal Farm, and I read the Tau and I'm like, oh, these guys are evil as shit. So I get it.
I mean, this is what is fascinating about the Taos. They represent this very unusual philosophy dichotomy, sociological development that is pretty unique. Like, there are no groups in 40K like the Tau. There was the Interrex during the Horus Heresy who were kind of like this.
Mm-hmm.
But the Tau are the only ones that survive.
Yeah. I agree with that. Also, I'm looking at the losses during the Taros campaign, and this is the one reason I don't like the Forge World books is they use hard numbers, and their numbers are laughably bad. Like, losing 350 tanks for the Imperium, that's nothing. That's fine.
It was the logistics that took them out in the Taros campaign.
Yeah.
Their supply lines got fucking cut.
But like 10,000 soldiers killed?
Oh,
That's
no.
nothing.
No.
15,000 wounded and 20,000 captured?
The numbers in the Taros campaign may be a tad off.
I think they should add like a couple more zeros to them.
I agree with that.
Because like in Armageddon, for instance, when the Fortress of Arrogance was going across the fields, it was led by hundreds of Baneblades. Not Baneblades, sorry. They had over 100 Baneblades on Armageddon at any one time. But it was, they had hundreds of Leman Russes.
So earlier...
I just find that funny.
It is funny. Earlier, I talked about forced sterilization. Now, I want to be clear. The only real source we have from this is from Dawn of War Dark Crusade 2006. And the epilogue of the Tau victory campaign basically says that the human birth rate collapsed and speculates that the Tau may have instituted a sterilization program. Now, this is definitely not a galaxy-wide policy of the Tau. And it doesn't really specify the method. And it is from the perspective of the Imperium, who is definitely hostile to the Tau. But this idea has propagated, and it is a common fan theory that the Tau, that their public rhetoric masks very coercive assimilation and re-education and social engineering and authoritarian control. And I think it's not outside of that lens to say that the Tau would certainly be interested in controlling the population to a degree, whether that is entirely sterilizing them or not. But it definitely reflects a lot of imperial or colonist narratives in our own world. I mean, the United States did it to the Native Americans, for example, and various other things. The United States
did it to a lot of people.
Yeah. Suffice to say, there's examples from history.
Yeah.
So they're associated with these population suppression measures, but the canon does not establish it as an empire-wide policy. It is something that was in a game, and it has been, that idea has certainly clung on. It's become a meme that people remember and has strongly associated with them over time. You're right. Video games are in fact third canon. Thank you, Godzilla Rex. I wanted to bring it up because it has become so widespread that I would be remiss if I didn't mention it.
Yeah. So. It's not out of the question for them. It's still in line of what the Tau would do. That and forced education, Tau have been known to like beat people of religious who have religion. They beat the hell out of them. They literally beat the religion out of them. So it's not entirely out of the question.
Follow up for you, Alexis.
Yeah.
Would the greater good survive if the ethereals disappeared tomorrow?
No.
Why not?
No. Okay. Again, this is strictly me. There are a few examples of, well, the one drama, obviously, who somebody put the name in the comments and I completely missed it. I think it was Ricky Chapman. They were also trying to say that it was an Iron Warrior, but like an Iron Warrior and a Tech Priest are basically the same thing. An Iron Hand, sorry, and a Tech Marine are basically the same thing. That's why I got them confused. But it's okay. I don't think that the greater good would last without the ethereals because I think Tau are too bloodthirsty. Like they would start looking for reasons to start fighting outside of the greater good. The greater good is a unifying mantra that they all stand behind, similar to the war in heaven. We mentioned it.
Hey,
but I don't think that it holds up. Like once the ethereals are gone, the Tau themselves have their own belief systems, and they have seen evidence of the humans being correct.
What about the Far Side Enclaves though? Because they don't have ethereals, but they still follow the greater good.
So I think they're too closely associated with the Tau at the moment. I think they follow their own version of it, but their version of it would differ. And then once they get into it would split up like the Christian fan base, where different fan bases would just exist, right?
Wow.
And they would argue canonicity about the greater good, just like the Christians did, and they would all go to war with each other. Like that's by the way, that's a joke on the Great Crusades, or the regular Crusades in this case.
The regular, yeah, the Crusades, yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I think that they would use it still, but its meaning would be lost. If that makes sense.
That's an interesting way to look at it. I think the ethereals are the keystone here. Like, what are they? Were they uplifted or engineered or created by somebody? Were they just Were they just a part of the Tau that had kept itself separate until they were needed? Until we find out exactly who or what the ethereals are, I don't know if we can really answer the question of whether the greater good could exist without them or not. And I think even more so, the question of whether an ethereal-led empire could ever reform itself, given how powerful the authority is of the ethereals. That is one of the greatest mysteries of 40K. What are the ethereals? What do they want? Where do they come from?
Why did demons attack them?
Or Alexis assassins sent after them?
Yeah. Like, they potentially have pheromones, as can partially confirmed by Janice Drake.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'm very suspect about that because that comes from xenology as well. That was one of the xenology things. That's it's
Janice makes a mention of the pheromones, and how Tau are really good at smelling and taste and do it with their tongue, which is interesting because that's kind of like a snake thing. But until we know what the ethereals are, or how the ethereals evolved. Did the ethereals evolve? Were they created? Are they a means of time traveling through the Hurad? We're not going to talk about that one.
Yeah, please don't. Here's another question for you. What is going to cause... Do you think that the human populations that have been absorbed into the Tau Empire are going to cause the Tau's biggest internal crisis? Because they have a stronger war presence, because they have latent psychers, because they have religious traditions, individualist political habits.
That's a good question.
Gene stealers, just saying,
Well, Tau have dealt with gene stealers, and they bred gene stealers, and then the gene stealers took over a planet, and they were like, oopsie daisy. That seems to happen to the Tau a lot. But It's still it's okay, you stumped me, which is I am honestly stumped right now.
Because the Tao Empire is arguably one of the greatest strengths of the Tao Empire is that it's willing to incorporate other species into its infrastructure, and
I
that
think
could
that
create a long-term vulnerability.
the humans are going to be the catalyst that starts their heresy. I'm putting it in quotes because I think one of the ethereals is finally going to be they're going to blame the humans because they're the easiest ones to blame because they're the problems in every single thing forever. They're going to blame them. They're going to start wiping them out. Another ethereal is going to commune with them and be like, this is not the way, blah, 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 blah. And then that ethereal is going to be like, no, you are being deceived. There is literally a demon that looks like us now. And I think that's what's going to cause a lot of the problems, a lot of the friction. And one side of the Tau is going to be genocidal against all of their auxiliaries, and the other side is not. But I think there might be a third factor here is that the Kroot might actually figure out what the Tau did to them. Because the Tau do experiment on the Kroot. The Tau use the Kroot against the Kroot's will. The Tau manipulate situations involving the Kroot where the Kroot want to do honorable combat and make it so that they can't. And the Tau constantly looking down on the Kroot will finally get to the Kroot eventually. So
yeah,
there's a lot here, but I do think that the breaking point is going to be one of the auxiliaries.
well, I think there's another factor involved. I would say something that is of concern. The Tau, they embrace drones. They embrace artificial intelligence. Other powers fear autonomous machines, notably the Imperium, notably the Eldar don't use them.
Mm-hmm.
The Votan, of course, are different. The Votan are like, it's fine. But even amongst the Votan, it's strongly implied that their AIs are corrupted and becoming, less and less good at doing things. So, do you think the Tau will have a Men of Iron moment?
The Tau might.
See, this is the thing about the Tau. Their potential is huge, but the potential goes both ways. It's a potential to grow and advance in ways that other factions haven't, but it's also they have this great potential to fall into all the same traps that all the other factions have dealt with.
Yeah, there's a great quote about this from Infinite and the Divine. They have made the same mistakes that we did, yet they emerged themselves. Which is Trazine mentioning to what is his name? The other guy, the other old man.
Orican the Diviner.
Yeah, Orican the Diviner, where humanity has fallen to the deceits of a god and then came out of it on top. But they had a protector, where the Necrons didn't. But so weirdly enough, there's a mention in a Farsight novel where Farsight believes in the machine spirit, like just flat out. He's had an instance where one of his AI companions did something that is not in its programming in any way, shape, or form, and completely bypasses its AI and sacrifices itself, blowing up a Nova Cannon and destroying an entire ship. Of course, if I had to mention Nova Cannons, we're on Lorebeards.
We do like our Nova Cannons.
I do like my Nova Cannon. It's special to me. But in doing so, Farsight did demand information from the humans. Farsight actually listens to the Gavesa. He listens to the Kroot. He understands them at on a deeper level because he's unlike other Tau commanders who have been frozen and whatnot. Farsight has been fighting alongside them for over 200 years, ish, depending on how old he is.
Which is suspicious because he's not supposed to be that old.
No, not at all. He's supposed to be 40 to 80, depending. But there is the whole, can the Tau suits become sentient? And machine spirits seem to be a thing leaning a leaning point in the Farsight novels, which is really, really, really cool. I love the idea that they put an AI into the machine, and they're like, "Yeah, this is my buddy," and then potentially that soul just got bound to that machine.
Yeah.
Like their own AI network might act as something similar to the Eldar's Soul Stone
Infinity circuits. Oh,
or
okay.
Infinity Circuits.
Yeah.
Uh, so there is so much potential with the Tau right now, and GW has been advancing their story. They're not one of the stagnated armies. They're not like the Imperium from third to seventh edition, where they were just completely stagnant. They're not like the Mechanicus, where they can't make new stuff sometimes. I- Again, Mechanicus, 1,000 dudes in a trench coat.
It's 1,000 cults in a trench coat. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, they're not like the Eldar who can't innovate. They're not like the Necrons who can't rebuild their old technology because they somehow forgot it's
The Eldar are more unwilling than unable, I would say.
yeah, unwilling versus the Necrons' inability. They can repair and build constructs. They can't. Once a Necron is obliterated, they can't bring them back.
Yeah, Necrons and Eldari are both in a weird position where they both have like super advanced tech, and neither one of them is like, we have what we need. We don't need more. It's fine.
Where the Admech are starting to catch up to the Necrons, and the Admech don't like that.
I'm going to put up a quick poll that asks, would you rather live under the rule of the Imperium or the Tau Empire? While we read some super chats, would you do me a favor and bring up some super chats that we may have missed?
I would rather live in a paradise world.
I'd rather live not in 40K. Elemental Exposure says, I feel the urge to play XCOM. Not sure why. I'm wearing an XCOM shirt. Visual Confido.
Ross, that's completely unrelated.
Well, I didn't have a Tau t-shirt, so I wore the next best thing. Ricky Chapman says, Kais, Farsight, and Shadowsun were all trained together under Commander Puretide and embody different aspects of his teaching. I think that's accurate.
And Puretide is the AI battlesuit.
Is he?
Well, became the AI battlesuit, I believe.
Did he? Is that?
I think that's Puretide. Commander Puretide is the AI.
Okay. I'm going to have to...
Well, Puretide was alive, trained them, and then when Puretide died, they took him and made an AI out of him. And yeah, I believe. Double check it, make sure I'm correct.
Yeah.
But double check that.
So I said he was their version of Patton because he was the greatest military thinker in history.
Yeah.
He's a legendary. He was part of the Second Sphere expansion. I guess a better example is that he's like their Sun Tzu. Is a better way to put it.
Yeah, he is.
He's their Sun Tzu, and he had a very flexible idea. Okay, yeah, they stored his memories in an engram neurochip.
Yep.
They did just like Johnny Silverhand did Cyberpunk 2077. Okay, so he is you can put this chip into other commanders.
But there's something different about Puretide, where Puretide might actually be a thinking, like an actual, like sentient creature, and right now, Farsight is having a crisis with that, where he might have watched Puretide die again, and he might be projecting will upon this AI that just did something that could have saved everybody, and it was still within its programming, but he couldn't see that.
Oh, and I would be remiss. There's a term called anime beards that comes up on Lorebeards and role playing, because we talk about anime quite a bit on that show. I would be remiss if I didn't mention I have an anime beards moment, because the crisis suits that the Tau use are based on the battle suits from an anime called Bubblegum Crisis, and you can actually see this in the design of their helmets on the crisis suits. Yep. Just a fun little fact there.
It's Bubblegum Crisis meets Mech Warrior.
Pretty close. Yeah. Sarmelian Bloodweaver asks, is it possible that ethereals leech souls from the Tau? So the Tau have weak souls everywhere. They don't have to be weak souled near an ethereal. But it's not out of the question for you. Though.
Yeah? We have never had a psychic commune with an ethereal.
That's my knowledge.
Then again, the Tower kept at arm's length with everything. They barely have interactions with the Eldar because GW doesn't know what to do with them yet.
Well, I
Do
just go back to that question really quick.
Up.
Is it possible? It's possible. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't rule it out, but I would say I think it's unlikely because the dim soul thing is true for all Tau everywhere except well, as far as we know, all Tau everywhere.
Now, the next question is: are ethereals part of the Tau species?
There's no canon source I can think of where a psyker engages with an ethereal's mind, so that I don't know. If there is a connection between ethereals and the weaknesses of the dim souls of the Tau, I think it would probably be far more historical, like far way back in their past than anything that's more recent. Let's just put it that way. I don't believe that they are like actively leeching the souls.
It would be cool.
Acne Zebra asks, do gene stealers affect Tau like humanity? If not, why not?
So they do. Gene stealer cults just prefer hiding on Imperial worlds because there's so much better hiding, and there's so much more biomass. Tau tend to find them where they can live on Imperial worlds forever. Also, fun fact: Tyranids have a favorite motorcycle.
Do you think that the Tau caste system in their society may insulate them to a degree from infiltration by gene stealers?
So we do know that they have been infected by gene stealers, and gene stealers did take over an entire planet of Taus. This is casually mentioned in a story, and that was their interaction with the gene stealer cult originally. In a further story in the same short story or part of it, it was part of something I read. Sorry, I can't remember what it was, but the Tau did defeat that gene stealer cult. I guess maybe.
Well, the Caiaphas Cain novels, it happens. They get some fire warriors.
I assume that
but the Kroot can detect when something's wrong. Like that is also in that novel. So
they can eat it and detect it, or smell it.
I think the G-Stars can absolutely infiltrate a Tau world, but a Tau cult, Tau G-Star cult would have issues with the surveillance heavy caste society.
Yeah.
And the Kroot potentially could smell it,
sniff them
out. So harder than a typical Imperial hive world or something like that, but possible.
Yeah. I wouldn't say impossible. I would say that it's just depends on the amount of Kroot around.
Iceman's88 says the Imperial War Machine is ever hungry, and I must go just drop some thrones for the greater good. Thank you, Iceman.
Greater good.
Appreciate you. When he says dropping some thrones are the measure of currency used in the Calixtus sector in Dark Heresy. So dropping some thrones means he's giving us some money. Thank you very much. We appreciate you, Ice Fades.
Thank you so much.
Sebastian Miller, good to see you, sir. The Tau has so much potential. That is like the whole point of this episode. I can see them getting to the point of being as large as the Imperium, but that is just wishful thinking.
So it's not out of the question. The Tau are currently trying to figure out Eldar technology. There is a potential that they make a webway. Just saying.
I think they're pretty far away from that.
Yes, but it's not out of the question. That's the thing when it comes to the Tau and their technology. Nothing is fully beyond their reach.
Remember that the webway is very important to the Eldari because it insulates them from the warp, which is not something that Tau think about. Obviously their ignorance of the warp is one of their biggest weaknesses, and that applies to their technology as well. Like you saw this in the fourth sphere expansion with the slipstream drive. They just don't get it when it comes to the warp and how the warp works. So I don't think they would. I think they'd look at the webway and be like, oh, that's weird. We'll do something else.
I think they might see it as a potential for faster than light travel.
Well, not for nothing, it is often described that the webway is very difficult to get into for anybody who's not an Eldar. In the Voidsguard novel, for example, the orcs they just can't do it. They just can't figure it out.
That's why they wait outside the gates and try to shoot it.
Tyranids and other species that enter the webway typically do so only when the Eldar leave a gate open.
Yep.
So again, I feel like it's a fairly unlikely thing for them to do webway tech. But it's very likely that they could start encroaching on the Eldar's technological advantage because of the way their science works and their advancement is so rapid. I don't think they're going to get to Necron level anytime soon, but they could probably figure out some of the aspects of Eldari technology, particularly Eldari's energy weapon stuff. Like I could see that being something that the Tau can figure out, and maybe even on their way to figuring out. The Crazy One, welcome, the Crazy One. Good to see you. Is one of the Tau strengths to research or use other races' tech? How would they answer, if at all, the Tyranids?
So they actually do have. One of my favorite things is back in 5th edition, GW tried this thing that they sat down and they decided that every single faction has to have an archenemy. This is when we got Eldar versus Necrons. This is when we got Imperial Fist versus Crimson Fist versus Orcs. This is when we got Tau versus Tyranids. Space Marines versus Chaos Space Marines, things like that. Okay, not every race had an archenemy, mind you, but the Tau and the Tyranids were actually an almost equal match, because as the Tau adapt their technology, the Tyranids evolve. So there was actually a great war in not that codex, but the codex after it, where the Tyranids send in their waves of gaunts, and then the Tau match that with their crew. But then the Tyranids match that by giving acid blood and poison blood to the Termagants, which then kills the crew. But then the Tau match that, because now the Tyranids are weaker in body because their bodies are poisonous now. They up their firepower and destroy them. But then the Tyranids match that by upping their toughness and do Carnifexes rushing them. So then they match that with their broadside battlesuit. Then the Tyranids match that with Trevagon's subterranean attacks. The Tau match that with the Mon-Ka and start rapidly moving, so they can't be burrow strike. It's a really, really good show of how adaptation versus evolution can happen at such a fast scale in Warhammer 40k. I do believe that the Tau, out of all of the races in 40k, could potentially beat the Tyranids, because they don't have the infrastructure to beat the Tyranids. That's their main problem.
They definitely
they simply don't have the numbers. But if they had the full, like, let's say the Tau were the same size as the Imperium. They had 1 million worlds and they were all compliant and somehow all listening to each other. Completely impossible, I know, because the Imperium isn't fully unified. They all claim to be the Imperium and they pay their tithes, but sometimes they don't. But let's say that they had that vast network. I guarantee that the Tau could potentially figure out weapons to use against the Tyranids, like potentially Blackstone pylon weapons that disrupt these the psychic scream that the Tyranids do in the warp, the shadow and the warp. They would just be completely unaffected by it. But we do know that the Tau are actually affected by the shadow of the warp. But they're
not
the
really
potential for them. They still do the paranoia and everything.
Well, it doesn't affect them nearly as much, though.
No, not nearly as much, but it still hits them with the paranoia and craziness. But it doesn't hit them with the psychic scream that everyone hears, which is good.
I'm going to disagree with you. I'm going to say that the Tyranids are probably the most serious threat to the Tau Empire.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Like, the Tyranids will win. That's the end of 40k, is the Tyranids win.
Well, it's more than that. The Tau, remember, one of the Tau's biggest strengths is their diplomacy. They have beaten the Imperium twice, and one of those wars ended in a peace agreement. Okay, they have absorbed when they encounter another species, they can either absorb them into their group, or they can cut a deal, like they did with the Votan. But the Tyranids,
you're gonna hate me.
Tyranids cannot be negotiated with. You can't open a trade agreement. You can't ask for a ceasefire with the Tyranids.
The Tau retro engineer Zote and put him back into the Tyranids to negotiate with them.
All right, so there you go. Now that's the way you do diplomacy with the Tyranids, is you bioengineer a Zote and have it go talk to them. No, but seriously, I think so the Tyranids not being something you can negotiate with cuts off a major part of the Tau's approach to survival. Then on top of that, the Tyranids are almost designed to punish the weaknesses of the Tau, because the Tau prefer very efficient and limited casualty warfare, whereas the Tyranids are like, we'll just send 1 million guys and you can kill them all and it doesn't matter. Plus, most Tyranids are very, very good and very effective in melee, close combat. They have ranged attacks, sure, but Tyranids are going to overwhelm you with their little guys who stab you or their big guys who stab you. Whereas the Tau prefer to fight for range. Now, the Tau do have the Kroots, right? The Kroot can fight effectively in close combat, and the Kroot can engage in areas where their vehicles, in any kind of rough terrain, or where their vehicles are going to be a big factor. But the Kroot are not some sort of magic solution. They're a stopgap. They're like, this is going to help us. It's definitely not going to win the war for them. So I think the Tau could win tons of battles and still lose the war.
That's fair. That is completely fair.
So I think ultimately the Tyranids are a very good archenemy for the Tau overall. They are a force that the Tau are not, at this time, are not well prepared for. Let's put it that way.
Okay, I don't think I've seen any from Twitch. Just making sure. Did I miss any super chats from Twitch?
Lord Vorn, if you can look for us and help, that would be great.
Yeah. The one thing that I mean when I say the Tau have the potential to be the ones to probably beat the Tyranids out of all races in the galaxy, aside from the Necrons. The Necrons could actually do it.
I agree. The Necrons are far more effective. They're far more set up to be effective against the Tyranids.
Yeah.
And frankly, they've been fighting them for longer than anyone else. So,
yep. 65 million years, in fact.
It's somewhere around there. If you count the Silent King.
If you believe the Silent King.
If you believe the Silent King, yeah. All right, so next super chat is from Elemental Exposure. Thank you, Elemental Exposure. He says, what if Guilliman met Ethereals or Farsight? I'm curious how that would go.
So the Ultramarines have a long history of killing Tau. In fact, one of the most famous Ultramarines, Cato Sicarius, crushed a Tau child's head under his boot.
I am Cato Sicarius. Oh, God. Yeah.
You kind of don't forget that.
That's true. However,
there is the potential there.
Well, how do you see it happening?
Tyranids attacking.
All right.
It would take an outside threat to unify them, like either the Demnos event or another Hive fleet showing up. The Bobby G is not going to just work with the Tau. He's going to destroy them. Because at the end of the day, space fascism.
I'm going to disagree. I think Guilliman is pragmatic enough to talk first if diplomacy served a decisive strategic purpose.
Yes.
He has accepted contact with the Eldari envoys. He has, when necessity demanded it, he worked with the Ecclesiarchy, even though he didn't want to. I think Guilliman, the meetings would be very different between the Ethereals and Farsight. If he met the Ethereals, I see this as a very cold, transactional kind of encounter, right?
Weirdly enough, I think he'd get along with Farsight a lot better.
That's what I think. I think him and Farsight have a lot in common, and I think they'd be able to build on that.
They're fighting and everything. There's a bunch of demons around and whatever. Guilliman looks over. Nice sword. You too.
Also, I think that they could reach a détente far more easily than the Ethereals, because what I think Guilliman would want is an end to Tau expansion into Imperial space. And I think Farsight would be more willing to do that than the Ethereals.
Yeah.
That's why I think that the encounter, I think he would probably be able to forge some sort of treaty or alliance with Farsight, whereas with the Ethereals, I think it would just be kind of a détente, maybe at best.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a permanent alliance is extremely unlikely with the Ethereals. Let's put it that way. Ricky Chapman, good to see you, sir. Our tabletop role-playing game campaign, one PC is leading a group of rogue Tau, and we made a new auxiliary races for them. The Zodins, a bioluminescent fungi race Okay, wow. That's cool. They're mushrooms who speak through flashing lights. And the Bedgers, a crab-like race the size of a dollar coin. Wow, that's really awesome. Ricky Chapman is a tabletop role-playing game enthusiast, and he's always telling us great stories about his campaign. It sounds awesome. I would love to play one of your games, Ricky Chapman. That sounds really cool. That is wild.
Can you take over for a second? I'll be right back.
No problem. So I believe the chat has spoken. It's 100% people would rather live under the Tau than live under the Imperium, which, you know, I'm not going to lie, that's probably would be on my answer too. Although, again, my ultimate answer would be I don't want to live in 40K. I don't want to live in 40K at all. Actually, Hannah brings up a good point that the Imperium could actually warn Farsight about whatever's going on with this sword. Possibly. They would be able to educate Farsight in certain things. Certainly Chaos would be something they could educate him on. But if the blade is not from Chaos, if it's a Satan blade, it's very unlikely they'd be able to give him more insight necessarily into that, for example. But yeah, if it is a Chaos artifact of any kind, they would definitely be able to give him a bit more warning and understanding of what he's actually doing. So yeah, frankly, this has been a great episode. The Tau are a really interesting faction. They were actually introduced not long before I showed up at Games Workshop. 2003 is the year I started working there, and we had a lot of conversations about the Tau. We talked about what they were like. We were really interested in what they represented into the lore. So I have never been a Tau player, but I've always found their faction to be really interesting, and I've never felt that they didn't belong. Let's put it that way.
I agree.
How is Kovu? Is Kovu still coughing anything up, or
he's sound asleep right now?
Okay, well, he's probably fine.
Yeah.
All right, let's. It's time for final thoughts on the Tau Empire.
Yeah, they're just pretty cool. So how to put the Tau Empire? The Tau Empire represent what almost appears as a good guy in Warhammer 40K. They are very much from the outside, misunderstood, bovine-looking creature that is blue and very leathery. All right, let me start over.
There's too much. Let me sum up.
Okay, hold on. I can do this. The Tau represent the greatest potential for technological advancement in the entire setting of Warhammer 40K. They are still young. They are still unified, which is, for the most part, which is very rare for a race in Warhammer 40K. There's no true unity in Warhammer 40K. There is a bunch of people pretending and masquerading as the Imperium, as the Adeptus Mechanicus, but no true unity exists in Warhammer 40K outside of the idea of the greater good.
Tyranids.
Well, maybe.
Actually, Tyranids.
Tyranids now fight each other.
So arguably they represent a unity that...
Yeah, the Great Devourer. But out of all the races in the galaxy, the Tau do represent also they're not the underdog in any means. They are actually one of the bigger races in 40K now, mostly because two others got invented. But they represent a potential for learning through brutalistic expansion. They're going to have more demonic invasions going forward. They're going to have to learn the lessons that every other race has had to fight against. They're going to have to either advance or die out, because they are now in a corner. They have the 500 worlds on one side. They have Tyranids on the other side. They have the Death Guard on another side. And, well, possibly even demonic possession attacking them. But now they have a god watching over them, maybe, or potentially about to do something else. What happens when they talk to that god? Is it going to be another Catan incident? Is it going to be benevolent like Isha? Is it going to be a trickster god? Is it going to be something that tries to openly communicate with them as the will of the greater good, causing a religious schism throughout the entirety of the Tau? Is it going to be something that leads to a heresy where all of them start infighting against each other? What is going to happen with that? That's one of the biggest plots that's existent in the Tau. How are the Tau going to adapt to the Cicatrix Maledictum? Does it even affect them? Can they travel through their nexus still? Is there Death Guard in there? That it claims to be destroyed, but yeah, that's kind of scary.
The Tau Empire is one of the biggest contradictions in 40K because it's got the technology and the unity and a genuine alternative to the decaying brutality of the Imperium, but the promise of the Tau's potential comes with conquest and the societal control of the caste system and the ethereals who decide what the greater good actually means and what it requires. So they're a young species, they're adaptable, they're optimistic in a galaxy that's built to very much punish optimism. It is the grim darkness of the far future, after all. But every time they expand, every time they build up and decide to surge, everything in the galaxy sort of seems to test their ideals to see if it can survive contact with reality. And I think it's important to point out the Tau are not the heroes in this setting. They are proof that even a better future can become an empire when it believes that its vision gives it the right to decide everyone else's future. But that doesn't mean that they can't be better, that they can't become better. I think the Tau represent a slightly more optimistic view of what could happen in the galaxy. And it's a mirror. I mean, we talked about how they've held up a mirror to the Imperium and how they're repeating a lot of the same mistakes, but they're also doing things differently in ways that the Imperium hasn't been able to do, like the technological advancement. Morning to Crescent says they're a rising power, not a fading empire. They're definitely rising. I think if you take nothing else away from this episode, I think you should take away that the Tau are on the rise. They're on the move. They're growing. They're building up, and they have fought back against the Imperium successfully multiple times. They managed to survive the Tyranids and the Orcs, and not everybody gets to do that.
No, not at all.
So it's to me, they represent an exciting potential for both light and darkness. I'm curious to see where they go in the future. I want to see more. I want to know more about the Tau. I want to see where they eventually will end up. And I believe that they will become a more important part of the setting as time goes on.
Agreed.
Which puts them in direct contradiction to, or well, they're the direct opposite of the Eldari, who are dwindling and fading, and they're not on the rise.
Yeah, the Eldari are kind of screwed in all of this. Like, no matter what, they're screwed. No matter what happens to everybody else, they lose.
Well, that's not necessarily true. We have done several episodes on the Eldari talking about things that they could do, like the promise of the Yanari and the idea that they could eventually defeat Slaanesh and the Ranadandra.
That is true.
The Eldari are not beaten yet. They're not beaten yet, but they are not on the rise. They are on a descent. So they could potentially be saved. What's funny is we haven't seen a lot of contact between the Eldari and the Tau, which may be on purpose and maybe not. Do we have a picture of Space Pup we want to show?
Oh, this is going to be for the miniature showcase towards the end when we run low on time.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead and grab that, and I will step out for just a minute, and I'll be right back.
All right. Well, I already got it up. I want to
talk
about this guy.
You can start the mini reviews.
Yep. I just love these guys. I think they're really cool. It's also really cool to see like Tau ethereal cast warriors, which means that the Tau actually have like this unit had melee attacks, and they were pretty decent. They were power weapons. So maybe the ethereals can fight. I love the idea that these guys are also ethereal-esque guys. So. We have a bunch of miniatures to showcase today, and I'm going to do a big stretch. And I want to know if anybody got the joke that I made with my name. The XV9 Hazard Close Support Unit is a Forge World Tau battlesuit. And we didn't even get into the full breakdown of Tau battlesuits or anything like that, or how these battlesuits really fight and everything, and all the different weapon systems. And all of the cool stuff that the Tau actually have weapon-wise, which I definitely want to talk about a bit. So, we got some Marines to look at. Apparently, as Tau have a basic count system, the XV9 literally goes. I love it. So this is by Kure Yuto, and this is supposed to be the rich Marine, the money Marines. This is actually pretty funny. Sorry, just reading it. He used glitter on the shoulder pad, which I kind of like. I dig this. This is a very crisp paint job. Eye lenses are done extremely well. I think that's just a contrast with 2 different light tones underneath it. The white is incredibly clean, very difficult to do that. Used some non-metallics on the back, or it's just the metallics catching in the back. It looks really nice. I really like this Marine. There's no real notes here. This looks incredible. I also love the Black Templar helmet. It's got the cross on it and everything. Alrighty, moving on. We got a full image of them. This is just a Primaris. Looks like a character. Looks like a Stern Guard sergeant, I want to say, or some type of sergeant. But he has the cloth and everything. So this does look first company.
Nice highlights.
Yeah, this is really well done.
Is that non-metal metallics?
I can't tell if this is non-metallic. No, this is metallic. This has to be metallics because it's shining in areas that non-metallics wouldn't shine in.
Okay.
If it is non-metallic metal, holy crap, that's really, really good. But this is extremely well done. I really like this.
Who did this one?
Kaio in the chat.
Okay.
Or
very nice. Very, very nice. I agree.
I'm probably saying the name way wrong.
That's a heck of a paint job.
Yeah. So moving on from there, we have some people working on some war buggies or war tracks in this case.
Hey.
I love this so much. I can't believe I called this thing being made. I am so happy that I called it. But the war track, really well done. You need to do the teeth.
Big time. The teeth are a major part of orc.
Yep.
Orc stuff.
I've actually done something different with some orcs, and I've experimented with some other stuff. It looks like you used a brown base coat on this, which is totally fine. That's a good color for orcs. I typically go with a white because I like my orcs very vibrant. Yes, that's a word now. I like my orcs very vibrant. But this looks really, really well done. I like it.
Yeah,
needs base work. Yeah.
Not bad, not bad. I think it's a work in progress, I think.
This is by Friend or Trader. And this is progress on the war track. So this isn't done yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's a whip. That's why I figured it was a work in progress. Good job, Friend or Trader. I'd like to see more.
Okay, so this is from Cornflakes coming up.
Cornflakes! Armored Sentinels. Check it out.
So they have a mostly gray pile of shame, but they want us to be gentle, so I'm going to be gentle.
Nice work on the plasma cannon. I actually really like that plasma cannon.
Incredible. Also, is it me, or does this just look like a V8 bug? Like the V8 bus?
I think those are really good for those are really good. That's a very good paint job for a novice skill level. I think that's definitely tabletop quality. I would be happy to play against those on any table. I would show. I wouldn't enter them in a pinning competition, but I think they're just fine.
Yeah,
I was a little more work on the base is something I'd like to see. Just maybe some flock or some rocks or something, and then maybe paint the rim a brown or green,
I'm assuming
whatever you like.
I'm assuming on the bigger armored sentinel, they didn't glue the legs so that they can take it off for ease of transport. That's why it's slouching down.
Possibly.
I like it.
I don't mind it. I think it looks fine slouching just as much as it does upright.
Yeah. The one thing that I would do is if you do base work on this, do a dark brown so it pops the model. So this is a close-up view on it. You can actually see some of the highlights and everything on it. Looks really well done. I'm always a big component of if you're going to do silver, add brass to it. It always makes the legs pop if you add a little bit of brass to it.
Agreed.
I like your weathering is good. Your lining is good. I like it. I do prefer the old Armored Sentinel to the new one. That's just a personal preference, mostly because I have 12 of the old one. I don't feel like buying the new one. Really good. You also got the window, which is good. A lot of people miss those little windows on them. Then we got the guardsmen themselves.
Hey,
Good mix of skin tones, very important. Do some black on your barrels, and this will look pretty good. If anything, do a slight wash to these guys, and they'd be perfect.
they need a wash. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, like do a Seraphim Sepia on the faces. And do an Agrax Earthshade on the darker skin faces. Works really well. And these look great. You got even officers in here. Nice. I like this. All right, then we got a close-up. We got different skin tones and everything. I'm always a big fan of this particular guardsman. The hair pulled back into a ponytail or a bun in this case. You got a power fist on your sergeant. Nice. I've had that power fist go crazy in recent games. Like, I've had that power fist kill so many dudes for no reason. This is still all by Cornflakes, which is such a good name. These are basically my first miniatures. Yeah, for your first miniatures, these are outrageously good. All right, let's move on. Oh, servitors. Nice servitors. I love the old servitors, and these are either the fine cast or the metal servitors. So these are hard to get now. Roscon, yeah.
I'm back. I'm back.
Yep, oh, he's back.
I wanted to grab something to show off a little bit later if we have time.
Yep. Moving on, we have Crusaders.
Look at those Crusaders. That's a whole squad.
Yep.
Goddamn.
If you want to run Crusaders nowadays, you pretty much run them as sister. It's a sister battle unit. The oh my god, brain work. They have the maces or the spears. You run them as if they have the maces. Sacrosands. Thank you, brain. But you run them as sister battle Sacrosands, and you can still run them essentially. I don't think anybody would mind that. I do want this unit to actually come back, but they are incredibly broken because a 1 wound model for like 30 points that has a 4-up invo save is really irritating to your opponent.
Yes, I can confirm. They're great tar pit, absolutely great tar pit.
Yeah, these are very well done.
Yeah, Sacrosands.
Yeah. Alrighty. Moving on, we have the Tempestus Scions.
Nice.
Really good.
I would actually be happy to own this army. Like I could. This is great tabletop quality. They have a good solid unifying color scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Like you are on the path to make a really awesome looking army.
Yeah, and that was basically their first army.
Not bad. That is excellent for a first army.
So these are some models that I painted in 1 day.
Damn.
So I threw this together. This is pre-wash, which is kind of annoying. I realized I didn't take a picture after the wash.
Look at those teeth.
Yep.
And the way you got the muscles, color. You got the muscles all highlighted and everything. That's a wash, I presume, that you used to get
that nipple. Yes.
Nicely done.
And then you can actually see that the base is still wet in this picture.
One thing I might suggest is the warheads on all the little missiles. Black is a little drab.
Oh, they've been dry brushed to a gray. This is pre-finished.
Okay, yeah, because on orc missiles they like those big vibrant colors. I might do white tipped, or I might do
white tipped work way better.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what I would do, but I would do something other than black, I think is what I'm saying.
Also, this is how you do yellow if you're doing an orc stuff. You just
yeller.
You just do a brown wash around the edges. And man, I'm seeing like spots that I missed. Oh, that's annoying me. That is really annoying me. Also, subassembly this model is like as you're building it, paint it, because otherwise it's going to be super annoying. All right, moving on from that. That's just the Daka rig. Then we got a big boss. I painted 9 of these. No, sorry, 6 of these. And I wanted this one to have like an 80s vibe to it. And I think I captured that pretty well here. You can see that this was painted brown afterwards. And
nice.
you can still see the base is wet.
I like it. It looks great. Again, great job on the musculature and the teeth and the lip.
Also,
the lip.
the
Okay,
purple lip works so well.
Targeter needs a little bit of red on it, I think,
Yeah,
on the
it got
eye.
the red afterwards.
Okay.
And then you can see the other the other big bosses in progress. Some of them have their red eye even, but this one I had to redo the teeth.
Nice.
This one came out really well.
You're doing 3 different versions of each one of these, right?
Yes, because the client asked that they go for different squads, and I was just like, yellow, blue, red, done. But that was it. I had to do these in like one day. Then we have Cornflakes again with his Empire Knights. Are these knights?
No, that's Footman, I think, from Myrmidian Footman, I think.
Looks kind of like it. But they look really good. I like the I'm all for the paneled flags. I think that looks really good.
Agreed.
It's just really good. These are the old ones too.
Like Can I
the
break
really
in
old ones.
For a second and show something off?
Yeah, go right ahead.
All right. So I don't know if the camera will pick this up. We will just try it.
Oh, that's an old Casterkin, isn't it?
It is. Well, it's not a Casterkin. It's an old Sergeant. The camera, yeah, I'll have to take some photos of this.
Put your hand behind it like this.
Okay.
And then
there we go.
Yeah.
There we go. That works. Okay.
Yeah, it looks really good.
So this was not painted by me. This was painted by a Golden Demon winner that I sat next to at Games Workshop headquarters, and he did this for me. And actually, you can see he's got a Medallion Crimson sculpted onto him, which is really awesome. And he's got a refractor field, so he's actually like an officer. And his shoulder pad, I don't know if we can read it, but on the shoulder pad, he painted my name. So it's actually me as a guardsman, which I think is great. Yeah. I'll have to take some photos of this later and show it off. It's one of my favorite things in my collection.
That's actually really cool. Going back, we have some
rifles,
Empire handgunners.
Yeah, handgunners. Yep.
I'm just a big fan of these guys.
Work in progress, I'm assuming.
I mean, honestly, with the amount of dudes you have to paint, I would be like,
right,
yeah,
like it's fine. It's fine. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to complain. Ooh,
Blood Bowl. Amazon Blood Bowl team.
Yay!
This one's also done by Cornflakes. Cornflakes posted a lot of miniatures that were
Cornflakes. You are a very talented guy. I could tell you've got some talent on there. That is really nice.
This is the team that I play, by the way. I love Amazon so much. They look really good. I love the snake.
Mm-hmm. Sneaky snake.
The lipstick could use a little work, but that's fine. It just needs a wash. Like this just needs just a simple wash of Seraphim Sepia, and you're pretty much.
It's done. A really good base coat.
Yeah.
Really, really solid, clean paint job.
Yeah.
I would be pleased. I would be pleased if I painted these.
Yep, I do like the blue streak in the hair.
Oh,
it's an easy way of determining which one is which. Yeah. I realized afterwards you need to make sure your Blood Bowl team is individuals, and not just do a group paint job that make them all look the same. These just look really good. You even got the teeth. That's impressive. I love this girl. She's strength 4. She's amazing. Oh, I love her.
Looking good, man. And I like the grass on the base.
And now, moving on from that, we have Fabby Bear.
Is that a Chaos Knight? That's a Nurgle Knight, isn't it?
Yes. This is a work in progress on some War Dogs.
Oh, wow.
So these are really, really grotesque. You need to fix your lines a little bit.
Yeah, that is a fairly messy job on the yellow there.
Funny enough, what you can do with this, like with Nurgle especially, is you take a darker color
and rust it up.
You go over that and show it as grime.
Yeah, grime or rust.
You put a little what is it? Nurgle technical paint. I can't remember what it's called, over it, and it pops so badly. I love it. This looks really good. I like the Nurgling on top. The base work is really nice too. I like the base.
Yep, that's a very good base. Excellent base. That's one of the best bases I've seen. Oh my God, look at that base. Look at all the rocks on it. That's beautiful.
I like the sound weaponry up top.
Yeah, Emperor's Children there.
Yeah. I also like the use of the Defiler heads.
Yeah. I thought that was a kit bash of some kind. Yeah.
These look good.
Agreed.
All right. We have only a few minutes left. A Zinch one. Nice. Yep. And then a corn one. The corn one is insane. I really like this corn one.
Mm.
And then last one, because
Hey, it's a towel suit.
Oh wait, we have one more that I'll show, and then that's it. So this is Mornington Crescents. This is the ghost keel that they were working on.
Nice. Looks good, man.
It's not finished, according to them. Needs some base work.
I did twig that it was work in progress, but it's fine. It's on the track to be very good. I like
this is really good.
I like where it's heading.
Yeah, I like this as well. God, I hate fighting ghost keels. And then we got one last one, which is a weird boy.
Hey!
I like the use of glow-in-the-dark paint.
Needs more light for us to be able to give more feedback on it, though, unfortunately.
Oh, I like this a lot.
Very cool.
I didn't take a picture of the... Oh, well, I'll post it for next week. But I worked on so many orcs this week that it's been crazy. So that's all we have to showcase today. And yeah, we had some really, really good paint jobs today.
Agreed. And it was super fun talking about the towel. Don't forget, we record every Wednesday from 2 to 5, every Saturday from 2 to 5. You can check out our Discord and find out what we're doing or tell us what you want us to cover. We're going to have polls up every Wednesday and Saturday as well. Right directly after the stream, I'll be putting up a poll on the YouTube page, so you can go vote on what's going to happen for next Saturday. We will announce the winner on our Wednesday show.
But remember, everybody, in the grim darkness of the far future,
there is only lore.
All right. Thank you for